See if this is working now. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to a special office hours. This normally takes place on Thursdays, but since I have no school for the next couple of months, I've decided to do a couple of these at a friendly European time. So welcome, everybody. Let's get to the office, shall we? How y'all doing? My name's Paul, Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the AstroPub. And, yeah, this is the office hours. The office hours is designed for y'all to come in and talk about lore or news and stuff like that for Star Citizen. We'll be watching the Invictus all-vehicle roundup and discussing a little bit of other stuff. So this will be a shorter one. I say that and end up being 4 hours. My plan is not to go over 3 hours, so. How y'all doing? Mason, Wallen, Blaze, Nove. Supposed to. Yeah, it's early because every so often I like to do these earlier ones for those of you who live in the EU, because it's a little more easier. Just fine. Don't go chasing too many of the storms in this storm season, Radar Echo. I know other people do it for you, but. Hey, Paul, recently saw a video of what? You got cut off there, Kuro. Office breakfast hours? It depends on where you are. It's about noon here in Austin, which means it's about 1 in the East, and it's 10 a.m. for Pacific, but yeah. Did they update the price? No, but they did finally tell us what it actually means. That it was for a price update. We'll go over it a little bit because the statement is vague as fuck. Just to say that. It's raining outside. Well, that's good. I'm hoping it's going to hold off rain for a little bit longer. Do they have brunch at 2953? I'm sure they do. I'm sure they have second brunch as well. Paul, I've been running your Astro Historian playlist in background at work recently. It's making work a lot easier. I'm glad to help. It is like 200 videos. I'm glad. It is a very juicy fruit. But as I always like to say as well, we are being, this stream is sponsored by HelloFresh. If you want to get 16 free meals and free shipping, you can use my code, exclamation HelloFresh in chat, which I'll do real quick. You can take away my code POGHF109590. Check it out yourself. 2 people have already gotten it. So we'll get mine. I get mine tomorrow, so I can tell you then. Ever. Take away my space game. Oh, I got a new one for this.
Lucas_DSC just resubscribed for 8 months.
Thank you so much, Lucas DSC, for that 8 months of support. You are a very important pupper, very impressive, very good pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. We'll go over this here in a moment there, Nova. But I want to kind of get everything started up. Yeah, it smells like weasel words. I made a post on Twitter, and a bunch of people, there's a bunch of people who were very confused, and other people were like, Star Citizen's never going to be finished. I'm like, brother, the funniest one was a dude who had crypto stuff on his title, and it was like, really? Really? Oh no, it was either crypto or I think it was Tesla. Does Tesla have its own crypto? But it was like the $ Tesla. I'm like, pot calling kettle black. Oh. About the BMM? Yes, there has been an update about the BMM. I look kind of Bennu colored. I guess I can't kind of do that one. 16 times the meals. Nah, 16 meals. 16 free meals plus free shipping. The price update is related to CitizenCon and possible Squad 42 trailer, perhaps. Yeah, I'll go for my reasoning with it, but we got to look at the actual facts before we get into crazy territory, because most of this stuff is just following breadcrumbs left by CIG, which is not always reliable. I've only been open for 5 minutes. What are my thoughts on CIG running another event after Invictus Free Flight? It's not nearly as much the same thing as like Xenothreat, which has massive capital ships, which can cause some problems. Jumptown is just Jumptown. It's not that complicated. The issue is more like, I don't think the events themselves are the main issue. I didn't say that in the captain's table because I wanted to kind of let the other guests speak a little bit. But
my spaceship. You can take away my space
yes,
suit.
school's out for summer.
You can even take away my space laser.
Sort of. I still have to go to my I have to help run my graduation for my seniors.
Take away my space game.
Supposed just resubscribed for 2 months.
Thank you so much for that 2 months of support. There's deposit. You are a very important pupper, very impressive visitor, very neat pedestrian. This is your fault. The reason we're drinking night. Trust and cheers in chat, y'all. Trust and cheers. Look at Hansel and Gretel. Yes, exactly. I think didn't Theseus do the same thing with the Minotaur? Was it breadcrumbs or something else? There's something similar. I think maybe it might have been a yarn with Theseus. On Salty Stream, someone DM'd one of the devs, and they're actively working on the artifact bug. Which artifact? Oh, the artifact bug. Okay, cool. Golden yarn. Okay. Did Salty Mike explain it as well? Because like that's right up Mike's alley. Something that's unique that can only be found in game that you have to go look for. That's Mike's thing. And I agree. Like I am of the opinion that there's some things like I agree with Mike. We need to have a ship that CIG doesn't fucking sell, that you can get in game that CIG does not doesn't make you pull out the wallet for, something you can achieve, because achievements are big things in game. The ship claim thing, I'm a little torn on, because there's a lot of people, I know a lot of people are upset about ship claim timers. And do I think CIG has preemptively put them in? Yeah. But people would complain even if it was perfect. The game's never going to not have bugs. It'll just be in a state where it's less buggy. And people will still complain that they had feel bad moments where they lost stuff. Like that's never going to not happen in Star Citizen. So like CIG does need to do this. And a lot of people are like, why? It's like, well, because you need to have a consequence for your actions. So if you got ambushed and killed, well, you can't just hop back into your ship and go fight those guys again, because that just doesn't work like that. Because you need to have the ability to not punish, but have a balancing act. So it's not just constantly respawning to go fight people. And yes, there does need to be timers for like the higher end, like the stuff that's more expensive needs to take longer. But there's a balance to it, and CIG hasn't found that balance yet. And the fact that they're increasing the timers, I think indicates that CIG may not realize the kind of state that the game's in right now. How widespread is the player unstowed issue? I haven't been able to get in PU. I don't know how widespread it is. I've heard a couple of people have issues with it. Have you tried the character repair tool? Because they did just release the character repair tool. You doing more content lately? I feel like I've been watching you do something every day. Well, it's Invictus. But yeah, so it's only for this week. Next week, I'll be doing a little bit more content. And this summer, I'll be doing more content in general. But it won't be as extensive. After the first 2 weeks of June, it'll probably slow down a little bit more. But if you hop into a different ship, if you spend the money, true. But at the same time, you can do the same thing with in-game money if you purchase them. Eventually, the way that it'll work is not all ships will be available at a single location, so you can't just claim it and then bring it over there. And even now, that's the case. So, like, if you have if you're spawned in, say, like Grimhex, unless you've claimed all of your ships and put them into your hangars to Grimhex, then you're going to have to call them over and then pull them out. And in the future, you won't just be able to do a 20-second like retrieval thing. It'll have to be a much longer process of moving your ships to the right location for planning and stuff like that. So there is a reason for it long term. But like a lot of CIG's things, like prisons, CIG implements something before it's ready, the gameplay is ready to support it, because they have it done. When does Alien Week start? Next week. So. Yeah, but they did increase them pretty atrociously in some cases. Some of the starters went from having like 30-second respawns to like 2-3 minute respawns, which, you know, but a lot of people are upset about that because it's a lot of feel bad. There's also a disparity between people doing combat gameplay loops and other gameplay loops when it comes to the cost of failure at the moment. Miners, salvagers, and even the FPS crowd can lose investment to pilots with respawn flight suit that can roll out of GX in like a few minutes. That's where things like prison is supposed to be the balancing act for that, because if they get caught doing illegal stuff, then they go to prison. And that's a longer cooldown. But yeah, that's the other thing, Ghost, is it's also supposed to encourage people to actually hire protection. You're not supposed to be able to, like solo miners will always be the targets of pirates, NPCs or AI, or NPCs or players. Well, I would love for prisons to have longer sentences if they fucking worked. Prisons don't fucking work. Because CIG doesn't have the time or the ability or the desire to do it. It's the same, why don't we have the G12 and the X1? Because CIG doesn't give a shit about them. Because it's not fun to work on those. Because they've got other priorities, which are more fun and more interesting to do. Which, I get, you're trying to retain ship artists longer. So you can't just throw them something that they didn't design and say, create this. It's kind of shitty, but... What's the biggest, scariest monster in Star Citizen lore? The sandworm. It's 300 meters long. You can hire me. I mean, I'd love to. I don't work for CIG. Thank you, Kuro. Trying to get it nice and... Oh, it's a little dull because of the lighting, but... What do you think of CIG's statements of physical damage being more than just ships during the Friday live stream? Do you think this means destructible settlements, small buildings, and on armor? Yeah. So let me explain something to those who haven't watched a lot of office hours before. There's a concept that I call the Sauron tool that CIG likes to do. It's just an easy way to kind of visualize it. You know, one ring to rule them all and in the darkness bind them kind of concept. CIG makes these tools which are designed to cover as many aspects of the game as possible if they're similar enough. So scanning is going to be all scanning, not just FPS scanning. That scanning is going to be used, the same tool is going to be used for ship scanning, station scanning, ground scanning, FPS scanning, vehicle scanning, everything. It's going to be the same tool across the board. Salvage, mining, that's all the same concept. They want to try to do them all in one big tool rather than tiny little bits and then kind of connect them together as ad hoc. It's kind of like the difference between Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen's development style. Elite Dangerous will develop a bunch of different things and put them out and then sort of string them together and make them work. CIG wants to build the tool and then just put everything out there, because they've tried to do that method where they put in one little bit and then just kind of slowly increase or tag together all of these things, and it doesn't work very well. It causes a lot of problems, and they have to go back and rework issues. They want to build the base all in one go and then push it out there. So almost certainly we're talking stations, outposts, armor, vehicles, ships, everything. Players. I don't think we'll get to Ride the Sandworm. That's the one thing that makes Lear 2 different from Arrakis. There ain't fucking nothing there. There's nothing there for you. There's no spice, so there's no reason to go. What's your take on ship gear racks saving through claims repairs? It's not a feature. It's not even an exploit. It's just an unintentional feature is the best way of saying it. Love the video. I'm glad the guy did it, but I don't know if that guy will ever watch me, or if he does watch me. That could have been a short. You would have done a lot better, I think, with a short, because that was let me string this out along to 8 minutes so I can get mid-rolls, or get YouTube to promote it more, which is not a bad move, but it didn't need that long of a video. Good video though. You should still watch it just because it's a good tip. We kind of talk about it. I don't have the link, but it's on my Discord, so I'll pull it up if someone wants to. Do you think ship weapons will eventually be able to snipe a pilot through the canopy if they're good enough? Yeah. Hey, Celine. Is the Sandworm in the game or coming in the future? It's going to come in the future. It's not in the game yet. It's only for Lear 3, which is quite a ways away from Star Citizen's current area. Sounds like they're trying to avoid Spaghetti Goat, basically. Random thought, when the RSI Perseus finally comes out, they should make the commercial based on the last stand of the Achilles. Yeah, that would be great. The Sauron idea is essentially the idea of inheritance or object-oriented programming. You save time by coding the shared root for the same stuff. It's basically that I'm trying to simplify that concept. It's not a new concept that CIG is doing. It's a concept that works in many different programmings. And since, what is it? I'm trying to think of the programming language they code in. It's the same thing that all video games are coded into these days. Well, not everything. I guess C# is a popular one. Why am I blanking on the name? Chat won't tell me. But the programming language they use is object-oriented, so it makes sense. C++, thank you. I think it's not technically C++, it's just C Suite. Is it something like that? Oh yeah, I guess it was Lua too. Forgot about Lua. Honestly, it sounds like the coding version of Work Smarter, Not Harder, effectively. The problem is, and that's where it gets into Squadron 42 problems. The reason why they're using, that's the reason why they're doing everything in Squadron 42 first. Not everything, but a lot of the gameplay stuff. Because if they can get that working in Squadron 42, they can do it in one drop rather than having to drip feed it out. But if they're working on Star Citizen, the way that the sprints work is different. The way that they're allocated is different in Star Citizen. Plus, a lot of that stuff needs to be put in Squadron anyways, because they're trying to get Squadron out the door. So the myth of 90% of the staff is working on Squadron 42 is a myth. But it stems from the idea that these gameplay teams are first working on Squadron 42 and then porting that over to Star Citizen. And I know a lot of people are like, well, that's never happened. It's like, it's happened multiple times. Salvage was first made for Squadron 42 and then ported into Star Citizen. The whole stripping that we're using right now, that was made for Squadron 42. And it was finished in Squadron 42 around like July of last year. So it took them about 6 months to put it in there. So once they finish the actual stuff, it takes about 6 to 12 months for it to come into Star Citizen. So you won't have to wait until Squadron 42 comes out. It'll just come out 6 months after it's finished in the game. Do you think CIG will have future DLCs for Squadron 42? I think so. Just not anytime soon. Probably small DLCs. One of the things they talked about was an add-on of multiplayer. So like a co-op mode for Squadron that cuts out all of the cutscenes. Though CIG, that was so long ago, I wouldn't be surprised if CIG decided to come up with a brand new a co-op mode for Squadron that is entirely unique, with a unique storyline for Star Citizen, because they were interested in doing that early on, of making Squadron 42 co-op. So I bet Squadron 42 salvages in situ repairs. Well, yeah, that, and also there's salvage in the game. If you watch the Vertical Slice, they talk about, like, there's a large emphasis on salvage gameplay, so it has to work. Like, they could just come up with their own, like, bespoke animations and stuff for it. That would take a lot of time. So instead of coming up with bespoke animations, just do the gameplay, and then, you know, put it in there. And I'm sure there are parts of it, like especially the hint and multi-tool, where you're, like, extracting some bits and trying to repair your ship a little bit on the in situ. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. We're getting to the point where we've been streaming for enough times. Do you think they can hold their promises 100 plus systems? Yeah. I'll do the quick version of this BFT, but they have an entire studio which is dedicated to that fleshing out of the universe, and that's the Montreal studio. They also recently got a ship team as well, but their job is to take the tools that CIG does and then build new worlds, build new locations, build new interesting points of interest, and basically everything you've been seeing added to the verse, like the new derelicts, the new outposts, like the ruined colonial settlements, the event locations. Well, I guess the event locations are kind of a mixture. Some of that's EU PU team as well. But a lot of that stuff is the Montreal team. They've just basically been training up on all the tools. So at some point, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Nyx was built by the, after Pyro's out, if Nyx is built by the Montreal team. But the idea being that the Montreal team, that it's growing, will eventually take over the role of building out these new locations. And that's their sole job. So we'll see multiple systems drop in you know, eventually, like, every patch. Now, it'll still take a long time. I don't expect CIG to have 100 systems at release, but I don't think CIG will release the game. I think they'll reach a point in beta where they'll just stop wiping, which will effectively be released as soft launch. But they have teams built already for that. It's just they got to get the foundational tools like server meshing and the dynamic economy to function before they can get to that point. Co-op Squadron 42 makes no sense with Star Citizen as a multiplayer platform. It depends. Squadron 42 makes sense as a narrative experience, and it's a lot easier to sell a multiplayer, especially if it's just like a co-op add-on, like if it's a DLC, for people, because there's a lot of people who like me who enjoy the kind of the co-op online experience, but don't necessarily want to deal with other players. So having a narrative-based co-op experience, I think would do okay. As long if they priced it right. If it was a DLC add-on for Squadron 42 or like a standalone game that you can get for like $30, yeah, that'd be a good idea. If it was short, like, 10 hours or so. I have no idea how to make Squadron 42 multi without breaking it. Well, that's where I come in and tell you that Squadron 42 is Star Citizen and Star Citizen is Squadron 42. And I'm not joking. They are the same game. Literally. They were originally supposed to be in the same game, but they split them off into separate packages. Squadron 42 was originally supposed to be just the single-player package, or the single-player version of Star Citizen. And then it kind of ballooned beyond what it was originally planned to, so they've kind of expanded it and split them into two different universes, or same universes, but two different SKUs. Not really. I don't. The only way they diverge is in terms of the cutscenes. There's a lot more cutscenes, and of course, there's no more narrative based. So there's but all of the fundamental, like the how they function, is the same. Like Star Citizen obviously uses servers. So does Squadron 42. But Squadron 42 is not an online game. They just spin up a server within your machine. and then they put you as a client inside your own server on your machine. But it uses the same framework as Star Citizen. Squadron 42 is not that too dissimilar. So that was the original idea. The original idea that Chris pitched was that you wake up and you're in a room, and you could either, like, you're in a bathroom, you choose which bathroom you go into, which will choose your character model, and then you would have like a mirror. You could choose your like your character creator, and when you get out, you have two choices. You could leave the door, or you could go to like a recruiting booth, and you go to the recruiting booth, you'd start Squadron 42. If you left the door, you'd go into Star Citizen. So that's changed a bit, obviously, but that was the original idea. That's a little not too true there, Johnny. Squadron 42 wasn't the original pitch, because I've heard that the myth as well. I've done the research for it, and what I've discovered is that Star Citizen was always packaged with Squadron 42 initially. It may have been that Squadron 42 was the original idea that Chris wanted to do, but when he got to the actual coding with a crew and stuff like that, the original name of Star Citizen and Squadron 42 was called Space Citizen. No, Space Trader was the original name. It was Space Trader. Was the original like work they were working with, which definitely doesn't scream Squadron 42. more Freelancer 2 was the concept, and so it's a little bit muddled, but it's a little different. Off topic, but I really want to play Bolt Gun sometime in the near future. It's good. I'll play it on stream at some point, but it's good. Squadron will technically tax your PC a little harder, as we'll have to run a tiny local one-player server for Squadron 42 to connect to. Maybe a little bit, but based off of the experience that people have had in low pop servers, Squadron 42 is not going to have nearly as many issues, because it also doesn't have to stream in the entire universe like Star Citizen does right now. It only has to stream in the areas that are accessible for the mission. So Sable RAM, yes and no. So this is where I explain, for those of you who don't know, I have spoiled myself mercilessly, on accident mercilessly, on Squadron 42. So I know the whole story of it. I know the whole, like, I've heard all the audio lines. I've even heard Chris's, like, direction in the background from some of the audio. So that's sort of right. But I don't want to go any further because it's a major plot spoilers for the game.
Take away my space lasers, but you can never.
And I don't. Yeah, whatever.
Take away my space game.
Shimpasta just resubscribed for 13 months. Hello world. Hello fresh. 07 Astro in all pubians.
Hey, thank you so much, Shimpasta, for that 13 months. Unlucky 13 months. You are a very important pub, very impressive pisser, very pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. How did you spoil it for yourself? Okay, so the short answer is I was looking for this audio file, and I knew somebody who had access to all of the audio files, including the older audio files. I was looking for this audio file.
2 words.
That one.
Bacon.
I can't hear myself, but the bacon audio file. And we found it. The problem is that the person I know who has all of the CIG's files, because of the big leak that happened in like 2016, they didn't have, like, they don't register their files as, like, you know, mission 1 giver, mission line, blah, blah. It's just numbers. It's a sequence of numbers. So the only way we could really figure it out was go through the files in terms of their file sizes. The shorter file sizes obviously being smaller in terms of, or like the smaller file sizes being obviously shorter in terms of length. So we're looking through that, and in the process, we realized that Squadron 42's audio was in there as well. So we heard all of Squadron 42's audio, and by the time we had actually found it, we basically discovered the whole plot. So I thought they were supposed to drop the co-op in Squadron 42. To be dropping co-op. Yeah, that was the original goal. And then they moved that because it became much more narrative heavy in terms of they were having a hard time of making it seamless. So they just kind of dropped the idea. Office hours at EU-friendly hours? Well, that's the idea. That was the whole point, was to do it at EU-friendly hours for y'all. Brain damage, that is very true. It takes place in the same, I can tell you that it takes place in the same universe as as Star Citizen. Squadron 42 and Star Citizen in the same universe. And Squadron 42 takes place in 2946. It is currently 2953. Yeah. So it takes place in the past in the Star Citizen universe. What's happening to Squadron this year? Well, let's go over that first before that. Oh yeah, gosh, I see Daddy's on. I forgot. This is so early that there may be CIG members watching. Hi, I may be entirely wrong with this. Feel free to correct me in the comments, please. I wouldn't mind the scoop. All right, so let me pull up the actual post. All right. So I don't have a tinfoil hat to put on. I got to get one at some point just so I can just bring some tinfoil up here so I can actually put it on for these. But this is entire. I'll tell you exactly what we know right now. And after I do that, I will go over what I think this actually means. So it's important to understand that Squadron 42, for those of you who don't know, has been removed from the website. You cannot purchase Squadron 42. There's a couple of things I want to address early on because I mentioned I'm partial to the reason why the rumor spread that there was maybe been a German law involved. The thing is that you can still get Squadron 42 with larger packages. So like all of the larger, oh gosh, what is it called? All of the larger, not Evocati, what am I thinking? The Concierge, I think. Concierge packages. They all come with Squadron 42. It's like any package you get over a certain price, you get Squadron 42. And so as a result, that wouldn't make any sense. There was a German legal thing that said you couldn't necessarily release a product. You couldn't sell a product without a release date idea. That also didn't work for other reasons as well.
My spaceship.
Spaceship.
You can take away my space suit.
I don't think C-Daddy has that control there, BFT.
Never.
Never.
Ever.
Ever.
Take away my space game.
Hoopy Fruit just resubscribed for 3 months. Fun times.
Hey! Hoopy Fruit. I didn't even know we had Hoopy Fruit was here. Thank you so much for that Twitch Prime sub for 3 months there, Hoopy Fruit. You are a Hoopy Fruit. I said Hoppy Fruit. I can't remember how to pronounce it. You are you just don't panic. All right. Thank you so much for that 3 months of support. You're a very important public, very impressive pisser, very independent pedestrian. This is your fault. You'll breach my drinking night. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. Twitch controls it, not me. Sorry, Locke. Canonically, 40K can still happen within the Star Citizen universe, right? Possibly. Depends on because there's a lot that's not known of the early age of exploration for the 40K universe. So, in theory, there is a thing that's similar to the warp, which is called interspace in the Star Citizen universe. And in theory, it could end up becoming the warp if you really wanted to stretch some of those ideas. But no, Star Citizen has some very fascinating connections with 40K's universe as a kind of an attempt to be more grounded in the 40K universe, but it's mostly just for a fun thought experiment. Will we be able to command a large ship in Squadron 42 pub? I do not know if that how much of that is true, though. They even showed interspaces as a concept in the server meshing video on a piece of paper, part of the jump point transition workings. It's also how your regen works. So regen works by a connection through interspace. So it's kind of like a smaller dimension that's connected to our own dimension. It's similar to like subspace or there's another thing in
my spaceship.
Halo. It's something similar.
You can take away my space suit.
Suit.
You can even take
Yeah, and then the sub happens again. I'll keep going over this again. 1 second though.
But you can never,
Ever
ever take away my space game.
Thanks so much, Brain Damage, for becoming a member on YouTube. You are a very important pupper. Very impressive pisser. Very good pedestrian. This is your fault. Your reason for drinking that. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. Borrow Star Wars 40K. Every writer borrows from one another. Nihil, I can't remember the full thing, but there's nothing new under the sun. That was written in the 3rd century, like AD or BC, one of the two. I can't remember, but yeah, it's this reality. Just call it what it is. Shortcut space, basically. What are we talking about today? We're talking about we're going to watch the IS, the SCL, and then I'm also going to talk a little bit about this. But anyways, going back to Starship Troopers has some influence, but Star Citizen is kind of a collective. There's some new ideas, there's some interesting concepts, and then there's some other ideas they've kind of pieced together. Thank you, Brain Damage. Thank you again for that membership. Also, WebWay in 40K was a whole additional headache. Yeah. I'll answer this one, Admiral Kusanagi, and then I'll get on to this. Since I know you talk about them, why have they not updated the main minimum computer requirements for 10 years ago? I think they did recently. I don't know when, but I think they did very recently. And the minimum computer requirements was not 10 years ago. It was like 5 years ago. Whenever 2.0 came out is when they actually released that. So yeah, I think they have. I just don't know exactly what they did. Hey, Joy-Con. But yeah, we're going to talk about Squadron 42 a little bit myself right here, but I'm going to get back to it. Yeah, they added CPU requirements for AVX. Okay. I think that still checks out though, Admiral Kusanagi. That's all of that is still okay. 16 gigabytes of RAM, SSD strongly recommended. 33 gigabytes of RAM, 4 strongly recommended for quad core CPU. All of that still works. And the thing is that it's harder for them to give like recommendations, I think, until they get Vulkan up and running. And once they get Vulkan up and running, they'll have a better idea of like the actual actual specs of requirements. So. There's a lot of people who want to make turn the Aurora into a Thopter, which I think would be cool, but I think Vulkan integration is a huge load off of PC requirements. Will be a big leap in my opinion. Yeah, that's the reason why it doesn't make a lot of sense because I think almost everything in there is still the same. You can still minimally work on those things, but. Good writers borrow, great writers steal. Yeah. Yeah, £10.42 does come pretty good stuff on that kind of thing. But do you think the price increase will come soon or at CitizenCon? We'll talk about that here in a moment. So, back to the points. The Squadron 42 was removed from the website. There was no explanation. Just removed. I did ask some of the people I know who worked at CIG, and they all said that it was intentional, it wasn't a bug, and there was a bunch of rumors floating around. So, I think this was yesterday. No, this is a while ago, May 21st. It's May 30th, so this was a while ago. Oh no, this was answered at May 28th, so 2 days ago. This was posted. So this was asked on the 21st. Is there any reason Squadron 42 isn't on sale right now? And Xylo, Tyler Whitkin, actually answered. He's the lead. He's not even lead. He's like community lead. He's not even like he's just head of a bunch of different things right now. Squadron 42 has been removed from the store at its current price, but will return at a later time. This change is not meant to signify anything other than an expected price change. Now, so we know it was removed because of a price change. Did we get a raider? Oh, it came through. Mike. Hey, Mike. For some reason, my raid thing wasn't working properly. Welcome, everyone, from my extreme. We're talking about this right now. So, again, healthy doses of tinfoil hats and breadcrumbs on this one. Tyler's not director of community team. Yeah, but I remember talking with Jake about it. He's no longer just like a head of the community team. He's got a lot of different, like, higher roles as well. He does more than just the community team stuff.
Distress bacon.
Never got to raid you, so I'm glad I did today. Welcome everyone from my extreme. We are slightly less salty. Community director, and a lot more Lori. I did see that Mike covered one of my recent videos, so thanks for that, Mike. I actually watched it, and people were like, "Paul, why are you watching the reaction of your reaction?" I'm like, I never get to do this. It's nice to do this. It's nice to see people watching my videos, because as always, I see the numbers on a screen, but my brain is like, none of this is real. I'm just a crazy person in a room with a bunch of robots who watch my stream. This is streaming my videos. Nobody actually watches my stuff. Hitman Stallion. I haven't seen that name in forever. So, well, I'm just a crazy person watching your videos. So there's at least one crazy person who watches my video. Doing good, Hitman. Good to see you. So yeah, so just take this with a hefty grain of salt, a big tinfoil hat on this one. So what is directly stated in this is that Squadron 42 has been removed from the store, and this is not to signify anything other than an expected price change. Now, why did you change the price in Squadron 42? Why would they do that? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Financially speaking, the game that makes them the most money is Star Citizen. Like, I'm sure the Fury alone made more money for CIG than the entire year of sales for Squadron 42 last year, which is simple because CIG doesn't advertise Squadron 42. They barely, like, I'm sure half the community in Star Citizen doesn't even know Squadron 42 exists, especially people who just play the game rather than go and interact with the community. So the question is, why? This doesn't make a lot of sense financially. So this is where I go into, beyond this is entirely speculation. No one should take this as reality, because if you do, you're just going to hurt yourself, because CIG has a knack of not coming through with players' expectations. The only reason I can think of as to why they would increase the price is because they're going to have some sort of showcase or some sort of announcement around Squadron 42. Be it a vertical slice, a announcement, like a release date announcement, some sort of major milestone. Because technically speaking, if they were going to just change the price, they don't need to do anything. They change prices on ships all the time on their website. Ships go down in price for events. They go up because of other things. Like I think a couple of years ago, the Caterpillar went up in price. So the question is like, why? Like there's technical reasons. There's no technical reason why. Financially, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like there has to be a reason behind the price increase. And the only reason I can think of is CIG seems to believe that there is going to be some sort of milestone or some sort of announcement. Now, CIG has not said that. Zero. So if CIG hasn't said that, it means that they're not confident in it yet, or they want to surprise us a little bit. It's just weird that they do it at like now. Like, why now? It's such a confusing time to do it. Yeah, and for everyone who's talking about the new law, they still sell it in concierge packages, and it would still also impact concept ship sales, which they also didn't do. So, what's the price before moving? $42 or $42? Yeah, $45. It's the same price as Star Citizen. I've been meaning to back Star Citizen as a programmer. The project is extremely ambitious. I definitely want to succeed. I haven't been able to get into the industry. And without a PC, I'm waiting. Hey, it makes more sense to get a PC before you get Star Citizen, because there's plenty of great games out there. So, let me go through some of this stuff. I don't have all of the records, but I can pull them up if you're interested and link them. A couple of things that are also important to take into account. This is taken into account with John Rice Davies did some pickup visuals at their new studio in Frankfurt, in Manchester. So that doesn't mean anything on its head. They're probably doing pickup video stuff a lot, though generally speaking, when you're dealing with video production, you don't do these sorts of pickups until you've already determined what you need to do the pickup for. For anybody who has done film or television production, I haven't personally, but I haven't been in the industry, but I was a theater kid when I was in college. So a lot of my friends went on to be in the film and movie industry. And the basic gist is you do a film shoot or a TV shoot, and you try to pick up as much as you can, as many angles, but sometimes you get to the editing process, or you get to the studio and you're like, we need to have some filler. It doesn't make a lot of sense. We need to have some sort of smooth, or some executives look and they're like, this doesn't make any sense. You screened for audiences and such. So you need to go back into a second unit, or like a kind of some pickups. So the fact that they're doing second unit pickups, it means that they're at least finished with the initial concept. They're at a stage where they're trying to kind of get the flow done of the story. So that's some indication, at least for cinematics, or maybe some voice work. So, am I still live? Yeah, it usually comes mostly during early editing. Yeah, it's usually just try to pick up the flow. That's why you see like the where they put in lines, like when they're like off screen to kind of make things make sense, that kind of stuff. Okay. Cool. I just saw someone say like Twitch clapped out or something like that. Red Dead Redemption was doing pickup shots for 2 years. That's a good point as well. Which still could be a while. And I don't think we're seeing Squadron 42 this year, but let me run you down my primrose path and explain a little bit more. The other thing that to point out was that CIG's teams entirely moved over to full-time on Squadron 42. The people before this, Squadron 42 teams had been part-time, which means that sometimes they were working on PU stuff and sometimes they were working on Squadron stuff. But in last October, the vast majority of the teams working on Squadron 42 stuff went full-time on Squadron 42. Which is around the same time they showed off those the EVA stuff, the new movement systems, the travel systems, the HUD, the star map, all of that stuff that they showed off at Squadron 42 or at CitizenCon, the 2 hours of mind-numbing, everyone forgot it existed because it was like 20 minutes interspaced between 2 hours of talking, which, don't get me wrong, isn't a bad idea. It's just a bad placement for when they were doing that. Oh, God. I've already said me only. Like, everything I just said is supposition. Everything I'm saying right now is entirely supposition. But why did that? Yeah, the moratorium maybe. Come on. There we go. That's what I should have happened when Mike raided. It didn't happen before. Thank you so much, Sanchez. Chachi Sanchez. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome everybody from Chachi Stream. My name is Paul Berserker01, Batman Shelley. On the Office Hours. This is a place where we talk about Star Citizen and look at the news and lore and stuff like that. Usually do it a little bit later, but yeah. Full time in Squad 42 is big news. Seems they're working on the creative part more. The engine stable design is done. So, like, again, everything I'm saying, because some people are coming in the middle way through it, this is all supposition. The other thing that's important to mention is that last year, I do a lot of the read-throughs of Squadron 42 monthly reports. They were mentioned multiple times of kind of, it's either an element, kind of like how you have white box, gray box, lot zero, and final art. Either it was an element that they created, or like in that kind of steps, or just completely different of vertical slice. They mentioned multiple vertical slices being done for Squadron 42 early last year. Like, vertical slice quality is what they kept saying. So there was no explanation as to what that meant other than just vertical slice quality. There's a lot of mentions of those sorts of things in Squadron 42 and Star Citizen monthly reports. They just kind of drop things like that and they don't expect you to understand it. You're from the VR Star Citizen community. I'm going to make a joke about how many times have you vomited because of Star Citizen, but I'm glad to hear that. How's VR going with that one? You make all the VR tutorials. Nice. It's just a marketing strategy to reduce noise when it releases that with a higher price. That just doesn't seem like a lot of sense. CIG was always going to reduce the price or increase the price of Star Citizen. It doesn't make a lot of sense to increase the price of Star Citizen now unless there's some reason for it. It could just be that. It could just CIG. I'm not going to put it past CIG to bumble through a marketing problem because they bumble through lots of marketing problems. They self-own themselves all the time when it comes to this sort of thing. CIG is like the Mr. Magoo of game dev. And it's important to note that CIG is not a mono entity. It's not one person. As much as we like to think of it's just Chris, there are lots of people involved in the development of Star Citizen. So I'm sure there are people who agree with certain aspects and disagree with other aspects. I know those sorts of debates happen inside of CIG. It's just depends on what it is. And it's hard to tell without any more information. No problem, Chachi. I'll have to take a look at it. I actually have an old VR headset. I haven't done anything like that, so. No, you're telling me it's more than one person. It's 900 people. So there's a price increase or not? There will be a price increase. We just do not know what it is yet. We now know for certain that there will be a price increase. Yeah, early Gen 1 Oculus Rift. That's true. They didn't say increase. They just say, and I'll show you exactly what they showed. They said. Xylo said a price change. The change is not meant to signify anything other than an expected price change. Why are we thinking increase? Why? Because they would refund everyone else otherwise? Possibly. It wouldn't make any sense for them to reduce the price. Just for, like... CIG's always said that they were going to sell Star Citizen and Squadron 42 at $60. Now, that was said back in, like, 2014. Lots of things have changed since 2014. But the original plan was to always gradually increase the price of the game package. In fact, the game package used to be $35. It actually used to be $30, and then they slowly went up. It was like $30 or $35 with Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. And then in like 2016, I want to say, they split the two packages and both made them $40. And then in like 2019 or it was 2019, I think, they increased it by another $5. It's been a gradual increase in both of the stuff. So. And I've already said that, aka money grab. It doesn't make a lot of sense to increase the price of Squadron 42. They don't fucking make any money off of Squadron 42. It's not a money maker, like, because they don't even advertise it. Like they do such a poor job of advertising it that I'm sure there's a large section of the Star Citizen community who doesn't even know Squadron 42 exists. You know, we often think of those of us who follow the community a lot, like follow the game a lot, as like the community, but there's got to be a huge portion of the community that just hangs out in their own little bubbles and plays the game. Like any kind of start game out there, so. When they advertised Answer the Call way back when, do we know the sales of Squadron 42 data? We don't know, but we do know recently they've kind of promoted a little bit more. And to be fair, we don't know the full data. So CIG could be secretly making millions of dollars on Squadron 42. I doubt it dramatically. And I think there may have been some breakdown of Star Citizen versus Squadron 42 sales, because there's technically separate SKUs on their because they do yearly financial reports. Now it's usually about a year or two behind. So I think the last financial report was from 2021. We have yet to get the financial report for 2022 yet, but. So my package costs $35 and includes Squadron 42. Okay. So here's my harebrained idea. Do not take any of this as gospel. This is entirely supposition on my part and is probably wrong. But based off of what I have seen from CIG, with this vertical slice stuff, with the movement of people over to full-time on Squadron 42, I think CIG is preparing either at Gamescom or CitizenCon, maybe both, to make an announcement about Squadron 42. Some kind of announcement. It's either going to be a new vertical slice with some new updates or a release date announcement. Something like Q4 2024. Now, do I believe they're actually going to hit that? Hell the fuck no. They're not going to hit that release date. This is CIG we're talking about. And even if this wasn't CIG we're talking about, this is video games we're talking about. When's the last video game that was released of AAA quality that has ever hit its release date, its initial release date? It never fucking happens. I do think that CIG has a chance to release it in 2025, but we really need to know more information about the current state of the game. I wouldn't be surprised if the CitizenCon release isn't even a announcement of a release date. It's just that they've entered the beta stage for Squadron 42. That would be understandable as well. Now, just because the Sons of the Forest actually make its release date, I stand corrected if it's the Sons of the Forest. I love that game. I didn't know if it made it or not. True, it's not AAA though. It'd be a really weird marketing strategy. I don't think it'll work. I think it's putting 4D chess in a weird, giving CIG the ability of 4D chess, which I don't think is Really true. Oh, the original release date was 2014 and then 2016. CIG has basically gone silent since 2019 on ideas of release dates. There have been some statements here and there of like, oh, 2 years away, because it's always 2 years away. Good to see you again, Yubi. What are being released? What CIG can't afford having bad reviews with Squadron 2. All game features have to be rock solid. They aren't even done with all features. They rely on sources and community feedback to know the features are good enough. Salvage is still far out. And even flight model is due for a change. CIG won't make 2 different flight models for Squadron 2. Everything's not the same. True. But a lot of that stuff is also being worked on right now and has been worked on for years. The problem is we don't have a ton of updates on exactly where those are because it's going to be first put into Squadron 42 and then moved over to Star Citizen. Salvage, for instance, was originally developed for Squadron 42, the salvage we have in game right now. And I'm assuming that hole munching is the same. That hole munching will be viable in Squadron 42 before it releases to Star Citizen. It could be 6 months. So, but salvage is in Squadron 42. It's just not player salvage. All of the animations and the effects and all those sorts of things are the same. And this is where it comes to the, like when we watch the SCL, which we're about to do on ship stuff, that's the important thing to take away is that they've talked, I call these the Sauron tools, one ring to rule them all and in the darkness bind them. The idea of having a tool that just covers a ton of different mechanics because it just makes more sense to develop one than several different bespoke ones. And there's a lot of that movement that's been going on over the last year at CIG. And physical damage is an example of that. They want to kind of make that one tool for all sorts of vehicles, probably, and almost certainly player armor, possibly station and bases as well in the future, but... Flight model has been worked on for over a year, UB. We're just hard to see it because we don't see anything. The CIG doesn't talk about Squadron. So, and as always, Star Citizen community doesn't read a lot. They either don't have time or, gamers generally don't like to read a lot of stuff. It's why the age of RPGs where you had to read all the dialogue is gone. That hour-long cut, the vertical slice from a few years ago, had a whole crew of salvagers who spoke to you when seeking the derelict ship. Yeah, that's part of it. Same with mining, same with a lot of stuff. Oh, no, not only do they have control surfaces simulation working internally, they've been testing it in Squadron 42 for months now. And Yubi, here's the other thing. CIG has also been very, very consistent by saying they're working on it to make it make sense for Squadron 42. And that's it. There's been a bit of a kind of, I don't know how to put this, a very stern response from CIG. This is our plan. We're doing it like this. Not we want your feedback. I'm sure they will want the feedback, but they're focusing on making it work for Squadron. So they may not care what players have for feedback because it works for Squadron. Oh, okay. It's a Twitch thing. I'll wait for a little bit. Is it called Maelstrom? Okay. I'll wait for the everything to stop real quickly. I'm gonna go through it, but. Or sometimes CIG was releasing the Squadron 42 development art, and YQ, then a month later they decided nope, and that decided not to continue with it. which is odd because I didn't run an ads. That was just Twitch. I don't run auto ads either. It's just Twitch just doing it to me. We'll talk about it in a moment, but if they don't want our feedback, maybe they should go get a bank loan instead of being player funded. It's more of, it seems like CIG is going to charge headlong into this thing for Squadron and then make changes after Squadron. If that makes sense, Sean. I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I'm based off of my experience, so. Master modes is the key part, yeah. The master modes is the important part. Yeah, CIG can't game dev by committee. Eventually, they're just going to have to pull the trigger. What's changed? For Squadron 42, they actually had a price update. Price is changing. That's why it's been removed from the store. Yubi's back. Okay, cool. I'm sure supposed to. Let me go over it real quickly. Basically, because we don't see it, and because CIG doesn't update us on it, other than these kind of like written updates and the progress tracker, it's harder to follow. But CIG has been working on a lot of that stuff that you're talking about behind the scenes for several years now. And I can see CIG just saying, you don't like it? We don't care. We're just going to go on with this to Squadron and then fix it afterwards. I don't think CIG is going to try to, because there's a reason why most games don't try to unify 100% gameplay between a multiplayer and single player mode, because it never works. Stuff that works in multiplayer doesn't work in single player and vice versa. So it's hard to see exactly, but I'm not saying it's 100% going to happen. I'm just saying there's a lot of people who are super like, well, this is never going to happen because this and this and this, who haven't really done the research. Like, it's there. It's just CIG makes it as hard as possible for you to actually access that information. See, that's the thing, Axel, we were talking about. I have no idea why. It's not like it's a technical issue, and it's not like they make any money off of Squadron 42, at least not compared to Star Citizen. A price increase, or doesn't really, they say price change, not increase, but it's going to be an increase. It doesn't make any sense at this time. It's not a glorified tutorial. It's 40 hours. That's a hell of a tutorial. They spent millions of dollars on like big name Hollywood actors for full like motion video capture and audio for a glorified tutorial. I think that's a bad take. True, they can add that, would be a good thing in a way, but then Spectrum would be on fire. When is Spectrum not on fire? Spectrum is always on fire. And it doesn't seem to hurt CIG's bottom line whenever it does. It is the fire. I burn. I cook my food on Spectrum's flames. Spectrum is like the coal mine fire I heard about. The Centralia mine fire. Yes, it's just Centralia, Pennsylvania. That's what Spectrum is. It should be renamed Centralia for April Fools. Strongest steel is forged in the fire of dumpsters. It's still abandoned, isn't it, Waffle? There's a lot of like cool, like abandoned urban exploration that goes on in Centralia. By the way, Star Citizen has its own Centralia and Null, a mine fire that's been going on for centuries. There's a lot of people who live there. There's still a lot of people who live there. I thought it was abandoned. But I mean, a small village. Okay, so it's kind of like what's the name of Pripyat? It's kind of like Pripyat. A lot of the outskirts of Pripyat have been re-inhabited by people. Not like Pripyat itself, but small areas outside of Pripyat. Some refuse to leave. There's a small group of passionate posters on Spectrum. And I know that because anytime, I mean, those of you who came from Mike's stream, Mike already did an experiment that proved the point that there's a handful of people there who just fucking hate certain things. They have their own culture. Similar with Reddit. Reddit, I've been a Redditor for much longer than I've backed Star Citizen. And I've always surprised about how unpopulated the Star Citizen Reddit is. It's got a lot of active users, but the posts are very infrequent, and the upvotes are just not as much. You don't get these massive upvotes every so often. Every so often you get like spikes of it, but it's very low. Like the community of Star Citizen, which has supposedly been expanding dramatically, and you can see that with YouTube views going up, I've seen it with Twitch views going up, I've seen it with new people coming in, and so on and so forth. It seems weird for that kind of stuff. Hot takes, CIG dropped Squadron 42 from the store because they're announcing edible pizza soon and they want to release Squadron 42 pre-orders to the throngs of clamoring pizza craving lunatic fans. I agree with that, Kuro. I'm taking that. I'm surprised I didn't get much hate with my recent Spectrum post about Invictus. Well, that's the thing, is that, like, there's a lot of just nobody who uses Spectrum. Like, there's good posts that people will post on Spectrum that will never get any traction because people just don't go to Spectrum. And those who do are only caring about a very few number of things. Anyways, so that's my tinfoil hat talk. Something's going on with Squadron 42. My theory, they're going to announce a release date. And people have asked me, Paul, when do you actually think it's going to come out? I think the earliest we'll see it come out is fall of 2025. Seems to line up about right. It's about 2.5 years from now. If they announce it, they'll announce it for end of 2024. They'll delay it because they won't be ready for it because they'll need a lot more time. That's the earliest. I also imagine that's based off of the current date. What would be needed to make Spectrum real go-to forum? Downvotes. It wouldn't fix everything, but it would clear out a lot of the garbage. To be fair, everyone's like, "Oh, 2 more years." I've been saying 2025 for like 2 years now. And the regulars in chat can attest. I've been saying 2025 for a bit. Probably since the beginning of last year. It's hard to date since 2022. 2020 is fucked over my sense of time. So this is not something like new. So that's a good question. I could still see it slipping into that. Hold on, I got to deal with this real quick. Does that deal with something real quick? Hey, Dakota. I'm optimistically hopeful, yeah. So I'll say everything I just said doesn't matter because CIG could be entire. CIG hasn't said anything. And if CIG hasn't said anything, they're not confident. Or they're hiding something for other reasons. You know, the Squadron 42, they're really shoddy with Squadron 42's stuff. All we know is for sure Squadron 42 is going to get a price change, which is likely going to be an increase. We don't know when that's going to happen. My guess is, well, Gamescom is in August, so it's 2-3 months away. It just seems like a really weird time to do it. It doesn't seem like to make a lot of sense to remove it from the store entirely. It's just odd. Everything in that whole thing is weird because it doesn't work for the greed aspect. It doesn't work in terms of technical aspects. It's just a weird thing. If it's meant to get us to talk about it, I mean, job done, but like, I don't know any other reason why. As long as Star Citizen is in a good state next year, I'll be that bad. Well, I also don't think CIG Star Citizen is going to be in a good state for another year. I think maybe summer next year we'll see it in a decent state. Probably more like the end of next year is when we're going to actually finally get a stable build of Star Citizen. This is a year of instability, desync, and other problems, which will rack through Star Citizen, through CIG or through Star Citizen until they can get all out of the basic infrastructure in, and that's not a good thing. Like, the other thing important to remember is that server meshing is not the answer to everything. Server meshing is a problem. It's a thing that they need to overcome. They need to beat server meshing in the face. They need to put it in a headlock and smash it against the wall until it says uncle, until it gives up and actually does what it's supposed to do. It's not a miracle. It's a problem that they have to, like, it's a problem they have to solve. It's an issue they have to tackle, not a Wunder, like, Kind. It's not a miracle. And even then, they're still gonna have to fix a lot of the problems because desync has nothing to do with server meshing and stuff. So with all of those problems, I don't see Star Citizen being stable until the end of next year. That's how you solve problems. How the Americans solve problems, through freedom and violence. One thing I think that CIG will almost certainly improve is the 30K issue. That will improve, but everything else will still stay garbage. And that'll just improve by accident. It won't be a thing that CIG does intentionally. And that's likely to do with the dynamic meshing. Not dynamic meshing. Server decoupling the... I always call it the stream, but it's the wrong name for it. It's the persistence thing. Replication layer. Thank you, Ionic Gecko. The replication layer, decoupling that from individual servers and making it over across the whole shards is, or over the whole game. That is likely going to be the thing that's going to nullify 30K. Because it should save your status of where you are when a 30K happens, and then just bring you back to where you were last at. Because since CIG last September was basically like, oh yeah, by the way, server PES is not going to do anything other than what we already have, but in a new format. It kind of hit the gut for most people. Like, what? This is nothing what you were talking about in the past. So. These terminals are not working. Also, a big hell. Why do they put in this? They're supposed to ask for our ships on Mobiglass, right? At some point, but not like it'll still be at ASOP. It'll eventually go away, I think. But yeah. Hey, Charles. All right, let's look at the ISC or SCL. SCL is probably a bigger one. This is a big thing about the ships and the ship updates and that kind of stuff. So we talk about the star map interface, how it's garbage. It's going to get fixed, but it's been worked on in Squadron 42. But apparently it's linked in with the new sensor tech, like how you do like sensors and like the scanning and stuff like that. I'm sure we'll get an update on it in like August or possibly SitCon, but yeah, the scanning tech. All right.
So like with the quantum drives, one of the bigger components, especially if we then take the extra 50% that's needed for the jump drive
as well, yeah.
Like if you actually look at the interior of the center body, there's no space left in there. It's so thin because of like, and then you've got fuel in there as well.
You got stick it on.
This is so intentional.
Yeah.
Makes the ship bigger.
Makes it bigger.
Fits less places.
Carry it out the front and little arms. Alright.
Well, we could just reuse the ones from the mule, right?
Yeah, mule arms. Yeah. That works. Yeah, or quantum ring.
I've not seen this yet. No.
The ones from Star Wars.
That was ring.
So my issue with doing so, because I saw them talking about that on Spectrum, my biggest problem with that would be how would they get them? So if you think about how big that is compared to the actual fighter that Obi-Wan uses, like how would you get that into a position to be used? Because
we're talking about the ring quantum jump.
Sake, that thing itself would also then need everything it needs to power it, because we can't put a quantum fuel tank in the ship. Because why would there be a quantum fuel tank in the ship? Yeah. Means that would need quantum fuel tank. It would need its own power. Granted, it would work. We could do it from a tech standpoint, but like, how would you ever get in position? And then once you've done your jump, what do you do with it?
So you do a big cannon that fires.
Yeah, big slingshot on the planets.
Straight catapult.
What if we just move the whole body forward, and then we've got more space at the back?
Oh, put the wings further back.
Yeah. So the canopy front could align with the front of the wings, and it's just like straight.
How can you say that as an artist with a straight face?
It's just not painful.
You just have to then make every other ship bigger to then fit the Fury into.
But the UK, sure, that's a scale every ship up 20%, right?
That's fair.
No.
Is it the whole idea? Yeah,
Manchester Special. That's what we used to call it. The Manchester Special. Whenever a ship went to Manchester was just like, we like them thick, and just decided to increase the size. It got so bad that CIG made an excuse in lore why stuff got bigger. It's like, it's just that Manchester studio is just the Mezzers. They're Aegis Dynamics. They're Aegis Dynamics into the Mezzers. Everything must be big.
your argument is that the quantum drives are too big. But don't we determine how big the quantum drives are?
I don't think it's that they're too big. It's snubs play a very particular role within the game. They're not designed to be used as the same as fighters, but that's why fighters are bigger than snubs. They're supposed to be as small as possible to be able to take them into much smaller environments, and they're cheaper to operate, maintain, and run because you don't have to have everything to support the quantum drive. Yeah, well, not disposable, because I mean, there's a person inside of it.
I was going to say.
Disposable are it's cheaper. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
Like it's the same. Like
Darth Revan, apply. Like, I'm not even joking. They have like 100 positions open, especially if you live near where one of the CIG's offices are. Apply. They need people.
Conversation I've had with people in the past where they're like, oh, well, why would you not just use the best ship to do something? By best being like the biggest ship, whatever. If I was doing a pizza delivery in my local neighborhood, I'm not going to do that pizza delivery in a tank.
Yep.
I'm going to do it a little Vespa because of the fuel costs, right? But if I'm having to do it...
I'm going full in there.
Purely down to
down the road.
Incorrect. Tank delivery is how all pizzas are delivered in Texas. Anyone in Texas in the chat can confirm. You better confirm. Otherwise, I'll go to your house with a tank and deliver a pizza.
Way to get views on YouTube.
But like, if I'm doing it in a much more dangerous environment, I'm not going to do it in a little Vespa. I might do it in an armored vehicle, right? So it's about bringing the right tool for the job. So once again, snubs, they serve a particular purpose and role within the universe. They're not designed to compete on the same level as fighters at everything. But that's why fighter is its own category compared to snub fighters.
Yes, delivery driver named Tank. All delivery drivers in Texas are named Tank.
So why is it cheaper to run about in a Caterpillar than the Kraken?
Well, it'll be cheaper on the Caterpillar than the Kraken.
Well, see,
because we're talking.
you were on base there, Dillinger. Of course, they're not going to deliver with a tank on base. How are you going to get past security with a tank?
Capital grade components, and the maintenance of them will be much, much higher. Granted, it's not something people massively have to worry about at the minute, but like eventually you're going to have to repair them, and it's all the costs and fuel to operate. It's going to get much worse.
Fair enough.
Don't give him that. It's BS. You decide how big the components are, and if you want to put one on there, you do.
If we can decide how big the components are, why don't we just make them all tiny and have a
Tiny.
big flying?
That'll make Alberto so much happier.
It's just a seat strapped to as many engines as we could find. Just leave it.
I mean, that's basically the Fury, though, right?
That's
It's just like a seat with everything else strapped behind it.
Taking it to as
Some
much
wings
of
to look cool.
an extreme as we can right now.
Yeah.
All right, then, John, can we make all the components only 2 centimeters big? Cubes, right? All identical, this big.
I mean, on the plus
about how many
side,
components
that'll
you
make
can
the
fit
doors a
in
hell of a lot.
Think how many components we have to redo.
I remember back in the day we talked about having like the vehicle, ship components.
Fun fact, San Antonio pizza is not delivered by tank, but rather roving bands of meth-fueled marauding street gangs battling each other for control of pizza delivery turf. So LA? I didn't know that San Antonio was LA. I'm going there this weekend for my wedding anniversary celebration. I'll have to keep my eye out for the street gangs.
Yeah, so vehicle components, and then like suit components that were going to be like SD card style, like. That's what you need.
Oh
Yeah.
My God.
You can fit vehicle components on.
Thank you, Fast Card.
Suits.
Max.
Yes! Max!
I would tell you the same thing I tell the narrative team. You're all just making it up. Just make it up so it works.
When the narrative team make it up, that makes the rules. When everyone else makes it up, we're just making stuff up. But they have the right to go, we just made it up, but that's not fact.
That is true. That's the reason why the narrative team doesn't do anything. It's why it's like trying to get information from the narrative team as a lore guy is like literally ripping teeth out of skulls. They just do not want to say shit because they know if they confirm something, then they're gonna have to retcon it if the tip team is like, what, cool, right? I've heard Moria. I've heard that before.
Yeah, no, they're quite good at that, aren't they?
You ready to start the show?
Sure.
My condolences to Cam on the anniversary, Paul. Poor girl. As she likes to say, I'm not trapped in this marriage with you. You're trapped in this marriage with me.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to, what's the name of the show? Star Citizen Live, the Invictus, 2953, all ships, round table, and...
It's not round.
Triangle table.
Triangle table.
Is it triangle?
Well, technically, it's actually a hexagon.
Kind of like a shovel.
Because technically,
sides.
technically, there's the 3 sides, and then there's the other 3 sides.
a
that are
delta.
Shorter, and then that's
It's a delta.
6, and then there's these ones that are 7, 8. So I guess it's actually an octagon. It's just very weirdly shaped. No.
Long hour.
As you were saying.
We got there.
I'm here by myself today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and we're in week 2 of Invictus, the yearly celebration and event based on the military vehicles of the Star Citizen universe. Joining me on the show this week is an esteemed panel of vehicle experts and Corey
Chevron,
Bamford.
thank you.
Starting to my left,
Technically, the emblem of the Space Force, of the U.S. Space Force.
we have
Done in there.
Immediate straight on Corey. He's sitting there minding his own business.
Why are you coming at me like this?
You could at least pick on Dan.
You're getting picked on today.
Fair enough.
if you haven't figured it out already, it's going to be one of those shows. Joining us to the left, Ben.
Thanks, good, yep.
Ben, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Ben Curtis, I'm the Vehicle Art Director for Star Citizen on the PU. I look after ships and vehicles and weapons.
Okay. And to my right, John Crew.
Hello.
Who are you and what do you do?
I'm John Crew. I'm the vehicle director. Once again, being on camera so many times in the last 24 hours. It's like...
Yes, but while you're on camera in the last 24 hours, we actually filmed those ISC things. Like I think it was March 29th when we
it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
and they've all just come out in one shot.
And you had
That's a good point. I always like to make whenever these kind of come up is that a lot of these things, like for instance, when we heard about the John Rice Davies thing, when John Rice Davies doing pickup artists, there's a picture of Jared with John Rice Davies in this set, which means they filmed something with John Rice Davies. Well, we probably won't see that filming, that video for months. So, which goes more towards the conspiracy theory of CIG's planning something.
There was a lot of like, do I remember what I said? Can I see it because I don't remember what I said?
There was lots of naming changes as well.
Yeah.
Between when we filmed it and when things went out.
Yeah.
So.
Did you have to dub it all or something?
Did nobody notice?
No. Oh man, I wish we'd done like a really bad dub over the top of it. So every time the word MISC was said, it's just like Mirai.
Yeah. That would be...
Mark, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Mark Gibson, I am the lead vehicle content designer for
What's the lead
spaceships.
vehicle content design?
So I run the vehicle content team, making sure that the ships come alive and work from a design and functionality standpoint.
He's being very polite. He tells the artists when they're doing things wrong.
Yeah. I do it a lot.
So send your letters to Mark Gibson.
And he's evil because he's bald. That's the rule that I've learned from 40K lore, is that if you're bald, you're evil. I think it's also technically like a sci-fi trope in general, or just fantasy trope. Bald people are evil, but so. But he's got the big beard, so it kind of offsets it a little bit.
Manchester Goodyard. Corey.
Hey.
Dan. Who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
You really got him there. I'm Dan.
Yes,
I'm a
Ricardo's
vehicle
evil.
artist here. Most recently worked on the Fury. You probably saw it like a week ago.
He's brand new.
Completely by your...
He worked on Codemasters. He worked on the F1 games. That's what he worked on before. I think he did environmental art before this, though. So
Yourself, I heard.
Yeah. No.
Rock and Stone.
All right, no one else got credit. Sorry, we're going to do a little insert on this. So we're filming with Dan, and this is back in, like I said, March 29th or whatnot. And Dan is who was in here in this studio, and he was able to make it. Alex,
do you work with Paul now, Ubi? Because I know he's working for Ubisoft now. So are you working with him now?
Alex could not make it into the studio for the filming.
Damn it!
So
I'll pause it for a moment. Yeah, it's always interesting to see some of these folks. I don't stalk people at CIG. All right, I'm going to put that into bed right now. All I happen to do is I tend to follow people at CIG, and so when I go through Twitter and I see someone post something, they'll like something, and be like, hey, I'm now working for CIG. So a bunch of employees will like, hey, welcome to the team, that kind of stuff. So I end up like figuring out who's working on what, and that's how I figured out a lot of things have been happening at CIG. They stalk me. To be fair, that's true. You're watching right now, and I know you are. Get back to work. Right now. Your supervisor's behind you. Don't look at me. Look at your screen. You'll be fine. Hi, by the way. So you work in the background. Let's see how many people I got with that. Back to work, Jake. Rock and Stone.
Dan's talking and doing the interview. And during the interview, I'm like, this is starting to sound like Dan is the only one who built the ship. And so I asked Dan, I'm like, Dan, you weren't the only person who built the ship. He goes, no. And he went into this awesome, amazing, lovely tribute to Alex. Alex, who's on the vehicle content team.
Rest in peace, Alex.
He goes off and starts talking about how Alex took him under his wing and how Alex really guided him through the entire process, and it's all really sweet. But at the end of it, we realize it starts sounding like Alex is no longer with us, like Alex has died. And so we had it in the cut, and then through a miscommunication, it got cut because somebody thought him sounding like he was dead was a problem, and so it didn't make the final episode. But Alex, what's Alex's last name?
Williams.
Alex Williams. I hope you're.
Well, rest in peace, Alex Williams. I expect a full tribute to Alex Williams to be portrayed at CitizenCon this year, and along with like a shrine. We need to build a shrine at CitizenCon as a in memoriam Alex Williams.
If you're watching, you did an amazing job on the Fury.
You killed him off for real.
And we will have you on the show at some point when you can make it. All right, and then Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Danks. I'm a vehicle content designer too, so I'm one of the team members that Mark leads.
Cool. And go ahead, Corey.
I don't even know if I want to now.
Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Well, we find his mic's been cut.
Let's just move on.
Beginning.
That's Corey. Corey's there in the middle.
I'm just here to vibe, really.
So if you've never seen one of our All Ships roundtables before, it wouldn't surprise me, this is only the second one we've done. We gather some designers and some vehicles from the Star Citizen feature and content teams, and we discuss as many aspects of Star Citizen's continuing vehicle development as possible.
His name was Alex Williams.
We put up a thread earlier this week and collect some questions from you, the backers. We chose the ones that were voted up.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's what I was asking you, Yubi. Do you work with him? So, because I know Ubisoft is a big company, but I know he works in Ubisoft Montreal. So I didn't know if you worked in the same. If you both worked in the same stuff, not directly. Okay. It was interesting to hear him talking about it because it's the first time he'd left the UK, as far as I understand. And it was a big move for him. So he's like, I don't know what I'm to do. What's Ubisoft, so it's Montreal like, and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, it's fine. It'll be fine. Great poutine. Sherbrooke, I'm at Montreal. Is Sherbrooke in the UK? Because I thought he moved to Montreal. I remember he said he had to move. Is in QC. Quebec. Oh, QC. Right. Okay, so still Canada, but
most, and that this collection of people could answer. We'll get to those in a little bit. Before we get started, I want to start with a. There
are more than 2 cities in Quebec, Paul. I doubt that. There's not that many people in Canada.
With a forever question. I'm going to start with a couple forever questions, things that every year, as every year goes by, these are the questions that always exist.
Oh, I know, it's huge. Quebec France is huge, but it's also like less population than like Chicago.
Every show is somebody's first show. First discussion point. Is there such a thing?
Which, by the way, means everyone knows each other in Canada. I'm just going to say that right there so I can make it Canadians mad. Everyone knows each other in Canada. That's the truth. That's just how it works.
Things too many ships. And I'm gonna let you start with this one, John.
No, definitely not. It's only a problem when there's too many of the same type. Like we obviously have I forget the exact number now, but it's like 200-ish.
Oh, we're at 197 now.
Close. I'm thinking in the future.
Yep. 197 that have been announced and revealed.
So far.
And hopefully at the end of the show,
watch out at the same time.
No guarantees.
Sorry, Elliot. Just preemptively.
It didn't work out last time we did one of these.
Can we watch this at a 1.5 speed? No, Kasumi. I'm going to watch it at the normal speed, and I'm going to increase the time of 1 hour and 10 minutes to 3 hours, because that's how content works.
If we had 197 light fighters, that's too many light fighters, I think. But when you spread it over all the careers, or the roles, or the progression within
then why do you keep releasing light fighters?
the roles, I think there's certainly...
Oh, sorry, I was too loud, but...
Anybody with an opposing viewpoint? Can you have too many ships?
Would you still say that if there were 197 different manufacturers? There were 197.
I mean, technically
styles
not.
fighter.
No.
Money. Yeah,
If
that's
there's
the answer.
197 manufacturers and each of them wants to do a light fighter, then there's going to be some very close, similar attributes beyond visuals, but in that very specific instance, no, I don't think so.
That's not enough ships.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to as well, doesn't it? Because you have a whole host of different manufacturers and a whole host of different roles, and not every manufacturer is going to deliver every role. And yeah, I think that's fine, that's fair. I think there's also a lot of space in our.
I'm sure I sound a little bit weird because I'm sure you listen to me at 1.25 speed. I know you're younger, Kasumi. You could be older. I don't know, but that's my experience. Like a lot of the kids I teach watch videos and stuff like that at like 1.5 speed.
Our universe for things that aren't necessarily like straight off the production line, right? So we're bringing these new systems out, and you don't expect them to have like every system to have it's got a new manufacturer in it and it's got this, that, and the other. But I think there's definitely scope for more less official ships. So things that wouldn't necessarily fall under certain manufacturers, or they might have started out as a particular thing, but they've been retrofitted and kept alive over generations of.
I'm going to make a lot of people angry.
So much.
Yeah.
Can't even tell what
Junkers.
it originally was.
Yeah, like things.
Now they're all drunk.
Oh, no.
Jalopy?
No, not again.
Jalopy?
Not again.
That's my.
You've got the cutter. What do you want?
I'd agree with John. Like, even within subgroups, it's important to have like even very similar ships to each other, because every manufacturer will do it a little bit different. So, and every players for the most part have manufacturers they prefer and certain traits that manufacturers do compared to other ones. So certain people might be more luxurious, more military, etc., etc. So having multiple of a similar type across multiple manufacturers, I think that's fine because it gives people variation about what they want to pick. There's not one type of estate car in the world. There's not one type of sports motorbike.
Even they're enjoying it.
There's a variation because people like different things. So if we had 50.
Half of Tony Z's words are when you can listen to the other half. He says it faster, I guess. Yeah, that's true. Someone asked why no big ship releases to the PU, because Deep Light said resource management and server meshing, basically.
The Argo single seat mining ships, then absolutely, but having 5 or 6 across multiple manufacturers all bring little bits and pieces to the table.
You touched on a point that I'm always interested in. There's this idea that the manufacturers all have to have their own distinct identities and all have to adhere to that stuff. And then we introduce things like, well, here's MISC doing this other thing, and they create Mirai, and so that they can still kind of keep their styling but still experiment. But in the real world of automobiles and stuff, you see a car come out and influence a dozen other brands, like when that new Mustang came out back in 2008, and then you saw everybody from Dodge and whatever all try to do their version.
Funny, right?
Yeah, but it's like, is there room in Star Citizen for a manufacturer to look at something another manufacturer is doing, and maybe for Anvil to try to do a Crusader-style ship or something?
Yeah, I mean, don't see why not. It's like a lot of our stuff is based off cars. It's going to be a very British reference, but you have like Vauxhall cars, which is Opel in Europe, and forget what the actual name of this particular brand was, but basically the Saab 9.3 is a Vauxhall underneath.
Right.
And at the time they owned the same companies, and they're like, take the car, you can change the bodywork slightly, and make it a Saab.
Yeah.
And the Saab just ignored that and didn't.
Look at like, was it Porsche that Porsche always made racing cars or sports cars and everything, and then
Owned by
the
BMW.
SUV, they've done all right. And then like now we've got Lamborghini SUVs, we've got like all and they're like, that's selling all right. We'll have a cut of that pie. And
And you got companies like
Saab does make fighter pilots.
Who are making sports cars, they're making giant 18-wheel trucks, they're making TVs, and it's like, what's that brand identity?
Making air conditioners.
It's like a lot of
Mitsubishi.
That's one of the things I like about like the racing stuff of like the Razor and that. Like a lot of times, car manufacturers will take something from their like racing
kind of pedigree and then implement it into the normal like Quattro with Audi and stuff like that, and like Porsche.
I turned up a little bit, but this is as high as it gets.
Kind of get informed by their adventures. Like I think the Ford GT was like a massive push as well, like where they tend to use the racetrack as a place to experiment what works and what has got brand appeal.
The cost as well. Haven't
Yeah,
they? So
yeah,
if they can take technology away from that and put it into the mainstream, then that.
So all modern MISC ships will probably steal a bit from Mirai if it works.
This guy watches F1.
Experimental stuff, but some of the new
him? He does more than just watch F1. He made a video game off of F1. He worked on the F1 games for Codemasters before he worked at CIG. So compared to you, it's much lower. Yeah, I try not to talk as much, but I do like to point out that like he's talking about how great to have variation, and there's only one industry ship, single-seater industry ship for mining and salvage, which is true. CIG. It's not like RSI wouldn't make it, or Drake, or Argo. Argo could definitely make a single-seater mining ship or salvage ship, and same with RSI. MISC could make a single-seater salvage ship, and Drake could make a single-seater miner ship. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to MISC and Mirai specifically, like I think there's a real there's a hard distinction for me. Like MISC are kind of very utilitarian, very they've got a purpose, they've got a role, they've got a job. Whereas Mirai is definitely like the performance division. Yeah. So anything that doesn't necessarily fit into that sort of industrial feel. Like I think MISC is a very, very strong art style, and very happy with where that's at. But that doesn't mean they can't try new things. And even if you take things like RSI, and you take some of our old RSI ships versus our new RSI ships, they progress over the generations of their vehicle releases. They span hundreds of years, or
many hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people have their own ideas about what these brands are. You see it within the community. Every time we introduce a new ship, they're arguing, is that really a Tumbrel? Is that really Crusader? That doesn't look like a MISC ship or whatnot. Yeah. These conversations happen internally too, though.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember a keen disagreement where you were making a vehicle of one manufacturer and just somebody was really vehemently against it? That's not that manufacturer, it's got to be somebody else.
Mule.
Mule's
an easy one.
Kind of split the wire a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
But,
Mule's okay. I would still say the Starfighter. The Starfighter is definitely made by Crusader. It just doesn't make a lot of sense that Crusader made the Starfighter. It doesn't fit in their wheelhouse. They tend to not make very small ships. They don't make single-seater ships, and they tend to not make military like combat ships. They tend to make combat support ships, but not really direct combat ships. And yes, I know the A2 exists, but like it's based off a chassis of a transport. Like the M2 is good, but not that good. So
yeah, I think kind of like I think the functionality of the Mule leads more to Drake than necessarily.
It's like a heavy fighter.
It's quite a high-end vehicle for Drake. It feels a little bit more refined, but a lot of the inspiration for the Mule.
But A2 is a combat vehicle,
sort of what we see now in tractors and combine harvesters and that sort of thing, and that they are
They said the Mule, yeah. They're talking about the Mule when it comes to it not fitting with the manufacturer, which I thought was weird because it's like it's Drake. Like they make the Dragonfly. Why wouldn't they make a tiny little shitbug that carries shit around?
Very purpose-built vehicle, so they kind of tick that sort of that brief, but they are just a little bit nicer.
Melkor the Wise is like the Mule is high end.
Well,
for Drake,
compared to Drake ships.
Yeah, compared to like some of the other Drake ships,
it feels more kind of argo-y in the sense it's like you say, like plant machinery.
Yeah, like if you look at the interior is all sort of like molded plastics, and there's whereas if you look at the interior of some of our Drake like spaceships, they're
very stripped back.
Yeah.
Screens
very basic.
Screens on the floor, like helicopter seats, that sort of style.
The Vulcan concept was Anvil for probably 80% of its concept development, and then got towards the end and we're like, it's sort of not particularly Anvil-y anymore. It's getting towards Aegis, and then like.
Then why is the Redeemer still Aegis? Like, it should be an Asperia vehicle. Ugh.
The whole cockpit bit of it changed to be more like the front of the Reclaimer.
Right.
So,
I still think the Vulture looks more Argo.
It does.
Well, the
yeah.
dirty secret
There you go. Like, yeah.
is that there aren't 15 different manufacturers making all these. It's the people at this table who are making them. And so, you've got to put your brain in, okay, I've got to put my brain in Drake mode, I've got to put my brain in Crusader mode, and sometimes the brain just doesn't want to do what you want it to do, and it will push you, towards whatever these other manufacturers are. And occasionally that leads you to invent new manufacturers when you're...
Yeah, the Redeemer doesn't look like it because it wasn't built as one. It was built as a fan ship. That's what it was.
Brain just wants to do something completely different.
Like, I remember just before I moved on to the Fury, like, I'd spent like a little bit of time on the Corsair, like helping LOD it, and like my entire visual library was just Drake, and then it's like, now you're doing like a MISC racing ship that's kind of Mirai performance kind of thing. Like, we weren't really sure which direction it was going to go then, right? And it was like, every time I modeled anything, I went square, I went big bolt, and Ben was like, no, rivets, metal, like chrome. Like, I was like, okay. And it was like every mechanism was more Drakey until I like remembered like the direction of it, right?
And I want to jump in there before the person goes to Reddit. You just referred to the Fury as a racing ship. Obviously, the two variants that we just released are not dedicated.
No, I meant like nippy, like they're fast and stuff like that,
yeah just before the Reddit thread started. Although we did discuss the possibility of exploring new variants.
He said it obviously was part of the design, but yeah.
Let's talk about that real quick, because this is the Invictus show and whatnot. Let's take a minute. It's my show. We'll do whatever I like. Pitch me a variant. So John, for those of you who maybe haven't seen the show or whatnot, during the Invictus, the Fury segment last week,
tractor beams variant, a salvage variant, hospital variant. All the guns swapped out for hospital beds.
John said that we're open to exploring additional variants.
Just watch your Star Citizen History series on Sunday. Now I want to. Now I know all the histories of all these companies and who should be making what. I'm glad you did.
For the Fury in the future, we're here. We're live. Yes. Hi. Put you on the spot here. Pitch me a Fury variant, just off the top of your head. If you could make any Fury variant, what's the first thing that comes to your head? Here?
Boarding variant.
A what?
Boarding variant. So the front of it, the actual circular thing at the front would actually be to
a docking,
small docking collimatric. So once you disable the ship, you could just slam into it. It opens up, force open the.
I feel like you need to.
I have to say the Polaris video was fantastic. Thank you. I'm working on the Hammerhead video now. So.
And the dome round the donut, so it's like facing that way. So it kind of goes this way instead, and then you just like.
You'd be quite lackluster boarding party though.
Well, you disable the ship. If you've got one of them in your ship, you can then use that to get over. So you don't have to EVA over. You get in it, you fly over. It's really manoeuvrable. It's really good handling. Go on.
So you'd have it with wings, and they're basically the claws, or
latch on
without wings, and it just gets shot straight out of Jeffrey's tube.
Oh no! He's done it.
No. Again. No. But in essence, that would be mine, because then you could use them to forcibly board and try and take over other people's ships.
There's only one of you.
A swarm border.
I guess you'd have to send a lot of them.
You're the weapon.
Yeah, you're the weapon. Do you not have faith in your
own? Be on my own. Does it detach once you've got out? Or
no, it stays attached because you've forcibly docked yourself with, just like what's the other one called? We made
Legionnaire.
Just like Legionnaire, but single-person Legionnaire. So you forcibly dock with the enemy. You
do these devs
force
even
into
play?
The ship,
yeah,
and then you try and steal the ship.
That's why they're saying like this is a terrible idea in terms of gameplay.
Right. Well, if you're just not that good at FPS, fine.
Right, so that's Mark's pitch. We can't spend too much time on this. Corey, what's your pitch?
I was thinking short-range cargo/transport kind of thing for zipping about.
Put cargo in the Fury.
You could work something out, right?
That's gonna be my bit.
You're the artist. You have to do it.
Skill issue confirmed.
Where are you thinking about putting cargo?
I mean,
some little arms, like a little.
The wings.
Submarine,
yeah, you can give it like a little arm.
Or just strap it to the top like the family wagon.
Yeah, roof bars.
Oh, can't put it on the top because that'll block the fuel port.
You don't need fuel. Just put some zip ties on it. It's fine.
That's fair.
All right, Chris.
People transport take the guns off the wings and strap on some drop seats.
No way.
Yes!
I did see that
Yes, I did talk about that at some point. Just strap people on the sides.
Reddit post that you can actually get two people in the cockpit.
Oh God!
You get one person to sit.
That is like the number one reason I was like, I do not want to put a room volume on this thing.
Yeah.
But I know that I have to. Somebody is going to just crouch in here.
Yeah.
All right, Dan.
Salvage. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Salvage Fury?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you can, like,
definitely.
on, like,
That'd be
drones.
well cool. You change the top 2 guns for like salvage arms, and then the bottom 2 could like, instead of having like, we have like the 2 size 1 missiles on the inside, you could put like, that's where it gets stored or whatever. And it
But
just
where
creates
would you put the material?
It would be mounted on the inside, so then you just nip out real quick, mine it, and then drop back to your reclaimer or whatever, and then like throw them.
Not like a chain of saddlebags,
Yeah.
you know, trailing behind you as you're flying.
The idea is that like you deploy so many of them that by the time you'd filled up, the other 20 you had with you would have already got it. You're like locusts flying through. There you go, there's your name. The Fury Locust, there it is.
All right, just a reminder that the views and opinions expressed in this video are those of Planet Imperium Games, Robert Space Industries, or its subsidiaries. Ben!
I don't know, everyone's told them the good ones. I'll go boring and go racing.
I promise nobody's taking the good ones.
Yeah, like, going racing though, I think it just needs to like, just have one massive engine on the back of it and some really little wings. So it's just
So
like,
a racing
basically like a
variant.
rocket.
A racing variant.
Yeah, like a rocket.
How'd you get to the power plant?
You just don't worry about it. You got a pit crew for that.
Yeah.
Well, no, we can use the Gion tech, right? So it can be like a little like floaty ball thing on some arms behind it, and it's like a really massive, great big engine that comes down, lifts up, and it's good.
There you go.
Just basically, strap yourself to a rocket.
Ship it.
All right, John, I don't want to pick any of these, so you decide.
You don't? They're all
They-
gone.
They're all gone.
Pick one.
This is how we do it.
Oh, we're doing it live. Okay.
Melee version.
Yes!
All big spikes.
You're saying this because you saw Adam made this
Yes.
morning. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So what?
So this morning, Adam scaled up some of the
It was a combat
FPS combat knives, the one that looks like it's partially a chain.
To the
saw.
size of the wings.
And he put them on the wings, so it looked like it had 4
Knives.
bladed, knived wings, because with the size of the wings, and you just ram people with it.
That would work great with your docking idea.
I like how he almost said chain sword, and it was like knives. That is the most 40k orc variant of a vehicle I've ever heard of. Ship it. Ship it. Listen, if the Vanduul can do it, we can do it too.
There you go.
Point.
I would say, along with the melee idea, though, back when I was trying to make the Grey Cat PGV fly around and everything, I had actually put giant fists in the front. Remember the old Superman Hot Wheels toy that for some reason Superman had a spaceship and had giant fists that flew out, and I had Hosmer helped me, but I got a Grey Cat PGV to fly around, and it had two giant scaled up arms with fists in the front, and it could just fly around. So I mean, I feel like we're on the same wavelength, man. I feel like
we can make it happen.
I feel like we can make it happen.
Submersible variant.
What?
Oh, don't start the spaceship submarine argument again.
All right, so we're about halfway through the show already.
Seriously.
Let's jump into some backer questions. So these were questions that were submitted on Spectrum and voted up by you, the viewers, and in no particular order here. Saw this one coming. How do you expect to work through the backlog of ships? And at what point in the game can we expect larger ships such as the Kraken, Polaris, and Perseus? Now, this one's a when question. Let's go with the core here. How are we expecting to work through this backlog?
Cool. I'll start, and then others can chime in if they want. So the last year or so, we've been really sort of improving and just making the pipeline work better. Mark and Corey have done a great job revitalizing all the documentation
Later, UB. Thanks for hanging out. Good to see you again.
that sort of I wrote years ago and we've just lived with. But because I've done more and more leadership and directorship, I've not been so hands-on with things. So they've taken that over and built the pipeline. The last few ships we've released have gone through sort of that new pipeline, and things have mostly gone smoother. Still doing some tweaks as we go. But ultimately, at the end of the day, big ships need a lot of resources to make them. And where we want to get to is a place where we're still delivering the same amount of content as we do now a year, as well as 1 to 2 capitals a year on top of that, and supporting all the other teams like we do. And at the end of the day, that just needs more people.
You want to get to the point of delivering
yes.
capitals of ships.
Yes.
You're not saying that we are at that point. Right?
We're not at that point yet. We're building to that point. So the last few months we've been starting to expand the team, which people have probably seen with the introduction of the Montreal vehicle team. And we're also looking for...
Yeah, they gave the Cracked Out Poutine studio development. The Argo guy helped form the team, the ship team in Montreal. They're working on 2 ships already, or 2 vehicles, technically. Which sounds like ground vehicles, but it's hard to see. But yeah.
For more artists in the UK, so if people are watching.
Yeah, and any
good leads.
Yeah, any lead artists watching.
To replace Corey.
Yeah, give us a shout.
A little plug.
Yeah.
It's
there you go, Astro Chronicles. Now is your time. Do it, Astro Chronicles. Apply. Don't let your videos be dreams. Go make those ships.
These shows do serve multiple purposes, and they're absolutely, from the conversations that I have to have with the talent acquisition team every single week, they're definitely a hiring tool.
Run the ads and basically just run our...
This is the ad.
Our page.
Yeah, okay. You're presenting to these people who it would be that they're working with. So, and we're showing them.
It's cool.
Are you sure you want us on here then?
It's too late now.
I think, like, just to touch on that as well, is people kind of think it's easy, right? You want more spaceships, you hire more people, and
if they open an office in London, perhaps. Like, you'd have to go to Manchester. Is the only problem.
You can do 3 more ships, but there's obviously a lot of.
It seems like a great place to work as far as these guys. I'll say in general, because I've been around the Star Citizen community long enough to know that, like, a lot of the people I knew early on in the Star Citizen community now work for CIG. Like, a lot of them. And talking with them on a personal factor, they seem to enjoy working for CIG. CIG does a lot of cool things for their employees. They really try to do their best to be a friendly environment. They have a lot of days off. They give a lot of good benefits. So if you're a video game developer, or if you're looking to get into video games, CIG is a great place to go to, especially since long-term they're going to be pretty good. They're pretty solid in keeping you long-term. And if you have a desire to, like, work in a certain direction, say you're like a programmer or a QA, and you're like, I'd really want to get into, like, level design or those sorts of ideas. CIG is really good at kind of working internally with getting people from the bottom and working them to a place where they can go. So I will say that based off of my personal experience with friends I know who work at CIG. So you just tell it's a decent company. It is, like, but like there's a lot of details that like pay is not as good as other companies, but their benefits are a little bit better. Like, they have a really good medical package, and there's a lot of good, like, time off. There's a lot of time off they can give you. Plus, they also do remote, sort of. You have, like, a certain number of days a week, or a certain number of days a month you can work remote if you want to. So,
up staff and making sure staff are, we're growing the team is quite a difficult challenge, especially when we've got, like, leads that are already at capacity, and then we're like, okay, we want to add, we want to double our team, right. And okay, well, we can't still have, like, it goes from one person that's already trying to juggle, like, 3 or 4 ships at once to then going, okay, well, they can now juggle away, and it's like, no, it's just not sustainable. So we have grown the team quite a lot in the last kind of 6 months to a year. We've started a new team in Montreal. We're looking to grow a second team and probably a third team in the UK. So yeah, like, we're expanding, but it does take time. And
they don't have one in the US because the Austin office and the LA office they're shoeboxes. They're tiny. They need to get new offices for those parts to grow. They're already overflowing. The Austin office is far too small for the number of people who are supposed to work there.
Yeah, there's a misconception that, like you said, you just add more people and instantly more things get made. Yeah. But the reality is, and this isn't just for vehicles, this is for any discipline in anything, when you have to teach.
I'm surprised they haven't upsized the Austin office. It's twofold. One, property values aren't actually that expensive, as far as I know. I think a lot of the values are going down, at least in where I am. And I know that there's a lot of people who've been remote. Like a lot of the Austin tech companies have gone remote for a lot of the reasons, for similar reasons. Like the Twitch team that works in Austin, they're entirely remote. I think they go to the Amazon offices once a week for meetings, and that's it. So, so there is, and they're also building a lot of new offices. So it's more of preparation and time. I'm sure CIG couldn't afford to get a new office in Austin quite yet. They need to work some magic and some tax breaks and stuff like that, as well as, you know, they just built a new office in Frankfurt and a new office in Manchester. They probably need some more time to acclimate and see who goes where before they do the big offices in Austin and LA.
When you have to train, when you have to,
it's in kind of like a, it's kind of in like a, it's not really a mall. There's an apartment complex like across the street from it. And there are a bunch of different offices around there as well. And there's also, it's like a mixed residential commercial space. So they take up the entire floor of their office. It used to be this tiny little office. Now it's an entire floor of where they are. So it's not a strip mall.
On board.
I could move to Montreal, but I'm pretty sure CIG want more knowledge and experience, and I've gotten 3D modeling. They're always looking for QA stuff. So there's also their lease. We have no idea how long their agreement is. That's true. Now I do know that the current office was leased back when the lead Eric Peterson was the studio lead, and they were in Bee Cave, not in Austin. They're in Bee Cave. They were in Bee Cave because Eric Peterson lived close to Bee Cave. So
your production gets slower because you now have to slow down everything that you would normally be doing in order to explain everything and make this stuff work. And then, so things slow down before they get faster. And this is with anything, not just vehicles, whatever. And then, you know, God help us, you know, the person doesn't last. The person does, you know, goes and finds a different opportunity, or just, you know, they interviewed well, but, you know, the reality wasn't. And now that slowdown has yielded no positive results. Like that. So it is definitely a process. And yeah, so we talked about this Montreal team. The next question from the backers is literally, what is the purpose of the Montreal team? Are they dedicated to like a specific type of ship? Is it?
No, I think it's a really dangerous thing to get into if you have multiple teams. That's off in the face. If you've got like multiple teams and you're like, oh, you know, you're the A team and you're the B team, or you're, you know, you're team this and your team that, and it's not a case of that. It's,
you're not wrong, Sean. The issue is also properties are falling. I've been watching my own house devalue month to month, and I'm not angry about it because it's like my house isn't worth the amount of. It's like $400,000 at one point. I'm like, this is my house. I got it for $250. There's no way this thing is 3 years ago. There's no way this is $400,000. And now it's been dropping. It's like if it drops to, as long as it doesn't drop below what I purchased it for, which it shouldn't, I'm fine. It's ridiculous how much money that is. They were way too inflated, and they're crashing because of that, and that makes sense.
The way
Austin doesn't matter. Like if CIG doesn't move out of Bee Cave, they could go to Buda or Kyle, or they could go to Round Rock. Like there's so many cities around Austin that are basically Austin that they could do. Or they could just move to another place in Bee Cave. It's not like those property values are like skyrocketing because they're also building new facilities all over those places.
We prioritize our ships is we get our ship priority, and that comes from John and the execs and all the important people. And then we look at, you know, what resources we have and, you know, what people are best fitted for. And then we allocate work that, you know, we feel confident that people can achieve. And like if we had a new team come in and we're like, hey, we got some capital ships for you, here you go, you know, you're not setting that team up to succeed, you're just setting them up to fail. Realistically, our big capital ships take a sizable team to deliver. So yeah, you know, initially we're getting them on board to kind of help, you know, fill out some of our backlog ships, help do some variants of existing ships. We're at the moment just trying to kind of, like I say, onboard them. They've been going for
April 1st is when they officially started.
Okay, yeah, a couple of months now.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, we're kind of, they're getting up to speed. They're doing a fantastic job of learning the ropes and, you know, understanding our processes and pipelines, working through a few ships that will be coming out at some point, and then.
So this is something that's important to note. I think they mentioned it here, but the BMM is entirely been abandoned. It's been shelved, not abandoned, like it's never coming out, but there's a reason why the BMM is not coming out. And it's because from the sounds of things, they just threw new artists at it. Now, Paul Jones, I think, was part of it, and Paul Jones may have left with some of the artists themselves, because when Paul Jones moved, some people just may have left with him, because that happens a lot in companies. But it sounded like the team that was working on the BMM was a newer team. And so they just kind of handed the team a huge deal, and they just kind of went and left. And it's not unusual. CIG has that a lot with their artists. The person who made the MSR is not working for CIG anymore. There's a lot of people who were working on vehicles that no longer work for CIG. And so it sounds like what they're trying to do is ease them in with new ideas so they can get creative and learn to do well and learn to fail and have some help with people. And then once they kind of get past the original like year or two of working with the company, that they go, okay, let's go and tackle some of these bigger things. So
we'll put on something bigger.
Well, that's the other thing. They're a brand new team. They're not massive. It's not like they're anywhere near the size of the UK ship team. Is like, if I remember correctly, it's 3 artists, 1 designer. Is it 4 artists maybe?
4 technically.
4?
4 artists technically, but 1's in the UK at the moment.
Yeah,
and 1 designer who was here for the last 3 weeks doing his onboarding.
Right.
He's literally on a plane now back to Canada to carry on with those guys when he gets there.
And when you get a brand new team like that, it's not even just them learning how we do things, because obviously every team does it. Like the way you build an environment isn't the way you build a ship, and the quality and the techniques and everything are massively different. So like if you've got a brand new team coming in, you're not going to throw them on a ship that's going to take them the next, for argument's sake, 18 months to develop. Yep. Because like the quality in their work.
How did I know you say 18 months?
From when they first start to when they get to,
because they've said that it takes them 18 months to do a cap ship.
Towards the end is going to massively change. With the larger ships, you need people who are more experienced, who are already embedded within the pipeline, because otherwise you can have such an inconsistent experience across the actual ship.
It's just, and also, the ships, small ships can be complicated, big ships are complicated. It's all, fairly complicated stuff, but like I say, when you get to a capital ship, there's a lot of unknowns there. I do think, we've got Jason, who's come across from the environment art team, and he's got a whole wealth of knowledge on building environments.
Jason, there you go,
T.2 assets and building up those kits. So he's got a huge amount of knowledge there we can lean on for building out our capital ships. But like I say, sticking someone on something for a year and a half when they're initially you want to get a few under your belt, learn the processes, touch lots of different areas of the ship, do interiors, exteriors, and just learn everything basically.
I think another point as well is that in general for interiors, at least the quality of what we receive in like pre-production is generally spread a little bit thinner. So the interior concepts for capital ships are generally like key art and some fairly like...
They didn't throw new artists at the BM.
Spaces.
They don't want to do that, right, chat? I'm second guessing myself now that I'm what they said. I don't think they ever said that, but from what I remember was that the artists were new. I could be wrong on that. But what they're saying in this case is basically that they don't want to throw new artists at big projects because it can be frustrating and can cause problems, and they want to do it. So one of the things that people have been asking is like, when did it take, or like I've seen people ask us like, why are they doing all these smaller vehicles and ships? And my thought was because they have new people who are onboarding and they want to give them smaller, easier stuff to get done. And that seems to be the answer. That's what they're doing. That's the reason why we have like 7 ships in the pipeline right now, all within Lot 0 or Gray Box or Lot 0 or better. And they're going to come out probably before the end of the year. Like, why? That's not counting the ships that are already been announced, like the Hull Sea, the Spirit, and those other ones which are going through that way. We've got even more. It's like, it's because they've got a lot of new artists and they want to get them onboarded. So that's what they're doing.
So like the production team has to do a lot more of the exploration. Whereas if you have a smaller ship, generally the interior concept's a lot stronger because there's just fewer things to work on, right? You get a lot more detail, a lot more to work from. So yeah, I'd say like definitely.
Yeah, the X1 is something that's already been created. You want somebody who is starting from scratch with the concept. Also, I'm also pissed off about the X1. It's something that would take them like 2 months to knock out, and they're like still refusing to do it. And you know what? I'd be okay with them reconcepting the X1 entirely. Give it to a new person and being like, hey, we're going to do the X1. It's got to fit in these dimensions. Go crazy. Have fun. I'd be cool with that too. And I think most people who own an X1 would be cool too, because it just looks like Megatron's gun. Like it's Megatron, from Gen 1 Megatron, the vehicle. It'd be okay, I think.
You have, coming into production, you have sort of fewer things to figure out on smaller ships.
The other thing is with, if you'll move on, the other thing is with the capital ships, once we actually put them in, we want to try and build them in a way that makes it easier to then do the other capital ships of that same manufacturer.
Okay, keep going.
No, do the other ships of that exact same manufacturer. So like, once we do one RSI, we want to set
Stop looking at me, Jared. Just stop looking at me like that.
Ourselves up so that we can roll into the others a lot easier. So instead of having to reinvent the wheel every time, we have stuff as a foundation to just move it forward quicker.
Yeah. I'm looking at chat here. Forgive me, we're limited crew. My entire crew got sick, so I'm doing everything myself. You see my buttons and everything. So if you're wondering why somebody's talking and the camera's on somebody else, that's me. Explain me. Where was it? Thorium Jim says it's so painful listening to these excuses. What do you have to say? Are these excuses? Or are these...
We're looking for artists and lead artists and everything. Want to come shout out, do it better? You're welcome. So let's go to.
We got next two questions are some of those perennial questions here. First one is ship modularity.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even need to read it, do I? But it says, has there been any progress on modularity since it was last talked about?
Yes. Good news at last.
Good news.
Well, we'll be the judge of that. We'll be the judge of that.
So,
you ready, chat?
Eyes on the chat, guys. Come on.
Yep. So with the development of the Hull C, we've pretty much figured out the last hurdle. And in fact, Chris is responsible for the test that I got him to do for it, where we can have object
Chat's
containers,
immediately doing good news.
The interior collection of assets loaded as an item, loaded onto the ship, because that's how the rear of the Hull C is attached to the ship and moves with it. What has stopped us technically
make sure it works.
Going any further with this?
It should be working.
Items inside those object containers.
Did you not hear it? Try it again. Double check to make sure it's right. Try it again. Why is it not coming through? Let me try something. Maybe the audio channels got messed up. Nothing still? Yeah, it's nothing coming through. Yeah, let me fix something with Triggerfy real quick. I'm going to fix this. Because it was working earlier, right? It was working in the other scene, right? Try it. No, I'll try it here. Is it working now? Or is it just straight up broken? Good news, everyone. There it goes. Now it's working. News, everyone. Monitor off. News, everyone.
2 words. Distress.
I know it's coming. I know it.
He fucked up.
Good news, everyone. Change this to monitor off. Try it again.
2 words.
Is that still going?
Bacon.
We good? So let me go back to the other thing. You're good. You're good. So you can still going through, right? Yeah, it's working. Hey, stop it. I'll play it again.
Couldn't talk to the vehicle it was connected to.
Right.
So the example of the retaliator,
at this moment
the torpedo droppy arms, they're actually part of the exterior of the ship currently because that's the only way they can work. So if we allowed you to swap the modules, no matter what module you had, there'd be a pair of torpedo arms dangling through the middle of it. Chris did a test where he attached a load of missile racks and torpedoes to the inside of the back of the hull C, which is not going to ship with it.
Wait, you're saying we're not having a torpedo hull C?
Yeah.
There is a shelf that says "Do not submit" in very large letters.
And the pilot had full control
Do
of
it.
that. And
No
could fire
balls.
them. So after the whole C ships and we found any more quirks with that setup, we're in a position where, to my knowledge, touch wood, technically there's nothing stopping us doing modularity now. That was the last big hurdle for it.
There's nothing technically stopping us from doing it, but there's also priorities and
might be
things, and
logistics.
building a team.
Nothing technically stopping us.
Yeah, nothing technically stopping us. Yeah.
The whole miss.
So what I heard was that whole CMX at season 1.
Oh, yeah. Just full of size 9 torpedoes.
All of the cargo arms are just full of torpedo racks that just fire out.
The whole.
All right.
It would be called the whole A. Because A is the like the definition for like but it's not the whole A like dash A, it's just the whole A. The whole little A at the very end. So people get really confused by it because CIG already fucks up their naming conventions. A for attack, yeah, because that's what the A stands for in the military versions. It's a military version of it.
Next one, we're just going to put the camera right on John Cruz.
Whole CA. Yeah.
Physicalized damage. This has been one of those, when we talk about things that hold up this system or that system, the idea of bullets and ballistics and then passing through and damaging the components within a ship has been linked to be the keystone to so many other developments. Anything you can tell us about physicalized damage?
Good news part 2.
Yay!
So it is really under heavy active development at the moment. So physics team have done a lot of work in the last 6 months on it. We're now at a point where other feature and gameplay teams have joined them to sort of work out the quirks with it. The vehicle content team have provided assets of ships set up in this new way of doing things. Should caveat this, it's not a vehicle thing, it's an everything thing. Every destructible system in the game will use this. So whilst everyone sort of uses the vehicle example of like, bullets going through ships, it replaces the prop breakable system, it replaces the environment breakable system, it replaces the vehicle damage system. There's another one I forget. So environment teams, prop teams, vehicle teams, we're all working on this at the moment with a bunch of use case scenarios that are with the engineers.
So it's more like an overall destructible physics system.
Yes. Yeah.
Sauron system.
People have probably heard the word maelstrom.
One maelstrom to rule them all, and in the darkness will destroy them. Later, supposit.
In various monthly reports and pieces.
Checking whether that's legit or
It's
not.
I'll wipe the board when we get back.
Right.
Maelstrom has not been in the monthly reports, by the way. I'll look it up in the last one, which means it's been hidden from the monthly reports. That's the name of the system. At least it's a new name. Okay? At least it's a new name. Ooh, they got a Galactic Beauty update. I'm looking it up real quick. It was mentioned 2 or 3 reports ago? Okay. I may have gotten excited about it. So this is the Squadron month report. Let's go April 2023. Let's go. I'll look up for this last year, just real quick.
So
March, where are you? It's February. And gonna be January month of reports. Mael, right? Maelstrom. To remember how to. Mael, yeah. No, it wasn't mentioned. No, it's never been mentioned. Not this year. I just did a Control F, and at least it's not spelled like that at the very least.
that's the name of that overarching system. It's definitely been said.
I mean, in all fairness, it's just the name.
It hasn't.
But okay. That they already knew was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the internal project name.
But by giving something a name, you give it power.
But it's more than just the physicalized damage for ships. It is a global.
Check out the posting site. There really aren't that many postings, so I imagine they're hiring a lot of various roles. They may have just gone through a bunch of hiring. Last I checked, it was 100 people still open. So
that we're not going to sit here and commit to it being applied to every single element of Star Citizen.
No.
There's always going to be performance considerations. But you develop the system, and then you start to see where you can plug it in and apply.
You'd find use cases for it. It'd be like a general system.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Chris. Let's see, what else we got? Ship tractors. Ship tractor
like I said, hi, Chris, and they all turned to look to see if who's there.
These were recently brought up again. What's the state of these and their large cargo counterparts?
So the ship tractor beams, we've done a. Can I talk? Yep. Yeah. I'm just like John to make sure it's okay. We've done a lot of work with them recently. We have current implementation set up on multiple vehicles that are meant to actually have the tractor beams attached to them. Their current implementation works from a vehicle setup standpoint. There's still some remaining work to do from the actual EUPU team that are actually delivering the vehicle tractor beams themselves. But right now in the environment we've developed it, you can spawn the ships that have them in and use them. Another big bit of confusion is because the sizing, when we did some of it, we did it to weapon sizes instead of component sizes, whereas EUPU have done their development on it. They've decided they want to go in the direction of component sizing rather than weapon sizing. So some of the size numbers will have changed, but how much they lift is consistent for how much we've always wanted it to lift. So, for example, instead of going all the way up to I think the biggest one we ever said was size 6 or size 5 or something. The biggest one now will be the size 3, and we might do size 4 if we ever do something for a very niche situation. But
the other thing to look up is Turbulent's website. Turbulent has its own hiring site. It's separate from CIG. And they're also hiring at the same time. So technically they're not the same company, but I think almost all of the stuff they're hiring at Turbulent is for Star Citizen stuff. So
The SRV is
the
a
SRV
3 now.
is a 3, but that 3 is able to move ships, but size 2s can do 32 SU containers. I can't remember how much size 1s and 0s do, but like we've just reformatted it as the systems start formalized a lot more. But yep, on the ships, we've got an implemented version of it working currently.
As far as the vehicle content team is concerned, like we've done a pass on the artwork to ships that were supposed to feature a tractor beam. We've now added kind of supporting geometry for them and made sure that like it actually works, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the
Caterpillar.
Caterpillar.
Yep.
Caterpillar's got
Nomad,
2.
Cutlass, 315P.
I feel like there's one more.
I feel like there's one more.
Was it?
Connie.
The Connie, yeah.
Taurus.
Yeah.
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 On its,
we didn't
lower
really
turret.
do anything for that one though, but it was kind of a freebie, right, for now. But we want to
For now.
probably at some point.
But like
with the
we've done
turrets.
proper geometry integration for the ones where there just wasn't any, because there wasn't any on the Cutlass, there wasn't any on the 315, there wasn't any on the Nomad, so there's proper integration for them now.
There was stuff kind of hinting it, but it wasn't.
Yeah, CIG owns 25% of Turbulent, and Turbulent owns 25% of CIG. I've been told that it's a common practice. I don't know, so.
It wasn't like legit, so to speak.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually like a utility mount with a actual.
Well,
Yeah, so they're now proper.
They're talking about ships that have not been that have been already out. So like, there's not that many ships with tractor beam. So I imagine the Spirit will have its own geometry built in with it when it's being made.
Turret, so you can swap to the view and use them and move boxes and things.
How's the golden standard for the Retaliator going? We'll get to that point where we do some updates on ships general, but this was a highly voted question.
Yeah, so it is in progress. We're working on the cockpit at the moment, bring it up to modern standards, because it's a bit old-fashioned, I guess is one way to say.
Venture doesn't have a
not really
tractor
got MFDs to the right metrics anymore.
Right.
Doing it for Squadron first, and then it'll work its way into the P when we're happy with what we need to do for Squadron.
Because it's done. I believe it's finished. I can look it up real quick. I'm not going to use the, you know what, I will. So I'm not going to use it, but I will. Shiny Tracker. The last time it was worked on was in 2021. So it's there. It's just not been worked on. To be fair, what a lot of times CIG will do is when it gets, they'll have it finished and they'll put it on as if it was finished. So, sure. This is shinytracker.app. For those of you who are wondering, Shiny Tracker is not only a great source for progress tracking, you can search for individual things. You can source it by Squadron 42, Star Citizen, in progress. You can also do, one of the best things of this is the Delta reports. So this will tell you all the things that changed at every progress report. So you'll see like roadmap roundup will come up and you'll see like one thing was changed or added and you go, well, this was fucking terrible. There's no information. But then you look at, the last one actually didn't have much at all, but the one that happened before that one earlier in May, this is how many that changed, right? There were 44 deliverables were updated. Some of them were to update like that they had finished stuff, other things which update the end date for their sprint or the progress that they're working on it, the schedule time that they're working on that specific item, and it has Star Citizen, Squadron 42. Notice all of the Squadron 42 levels had massive amounts of changes to them. The character creators and stuff, hacks, all these sorts of different systems. The whole C. So it's a good source. So whenever you see the roadmap update, check out Shiny Tracker and you can see what has actually changed.
Will there be a way to dock a reclaimer to a station in the future to avoid needing to go down to the planet to retrieve it?
So we wanted that originally for the original implementation of the docking collars, but we found that the current positioning of the arms and the engines were off. So we're going to have to go in and fix that, as well as I think we've
Yes, at Man's Stallion. Really? In front of my OSHA handbook?
And the actual doors were the wrong size as well, so we need
the
to
door
sort
is
them
just
as well.
some random
we looked
door.
at that and we did some work towards.
No, we wanted to do it. We just didn't have time when we were doing all the other salvage work.
So it's wanted, but it's going to require changes to the exterior, the physical arms and everything, which are very complicated mechanisms. So it's a big time investment. So it's something that's going to get done, but it's when we can find resources to actually do it. Because, like you said, with the ramp up, every time we try and expand the team, we're losing resources to actually train the new people that are coming in.
So complete rework for the reclaimer. Tyler. I'm just kidding. I was trying to make a joke and then I got the names mixed up.
There's certainly a lot of room for improvement with the reclaimer.
Like the rear cargo lift and everything needs
the whole rear section of everyone's favourite multi-stage elevator.
Wait, did you say Starfarer or Reclaimer?
Reclaimer.
Okay, so Starfarer is perfect.
Random question. We make a lore about the galaxy. I thought you were talking about like the universe. I'm like, that's all I do, Payscape. I will, but there's not a lot of lore right now. When it comes out, when more information comes out, I'll definitely do that. Yeah, CIG got 25% of Turbulent, but it looks like they got far less in CIG. That makes sense.
Starfire is not perfect.
The Starfire is having its insides pulled out, redone completely.
They are so fucking pissed about those old ships. It's the reason why the Endeavor will never come out. John, John Crew, if you're watching this, I hope you have nightmares about the Endeavor. Like, you know, like those when those dreams when you're like naked to class. I hope like John Crew has dreams where he's naked and at the office, and Chris walks up and says you need to do the Endeavor. Like, I want those sorts of waking up with sweaty dreams at the end. Like wake up in a cold sweat, be like, oh. He made a statement about it recently. He's just gonna quit before the Endeavor comes out. The Endeavor will come out, but it's one of those ships that it'll when the game is done is when the Endeavor will come out, which is good and bad. It's bad because we won't get it sooner, but the good part is that it will be one of the best ships CIG ever does, because it's going to be one of the last.
Watch that. Can I watch you?
Stream it pay-per-view.
Absolutely.
I mean, you say 2029, probably. It's going to be a while. There are some ships that are just so massive that require so much like investment in the game that it just wouldn't make a lot of sense to put a lot of resource towards them when you've got all these other ships to do. The Endeavor being the big one, because it literally does everything. It's the ultimate utility tool with its modules. So
we have personal feelings too. Let's see. We talked a lot about the capital ships. Things like this. One of the most voted up questions here is about the Polaris. Simply put, is the Polaris actually in production? It shows that it is on the progress tracker, but the Apollo was once on the progress tracker at one point as well, and priorities change, and yada, yada, yada. So we'll go to Camera John here. There's one. Camera John. There we go.
Don't know the question.
That just sounded like Ben wanted the question.
No, I didn't.
You were talking crap.
I think it's only fair.
Ben.
All right.
So is the Polaris in production?
I'm going to talk about the Apollo.
Let's talk about capital ships and when they're in development. So Apollo.
The Apollo is now a capital ship.
It grew so much.
Don't.
All right, we'll talk about the Polaris. So the Polaris is I'd say it's more in pre-production. Like, we are spending time investigating it at the moment. As we've already kind of hinted on, when it comes to doing our capital ships, we want to make sure that we're tackling them in a way that allows us to scale up to not just do one capital ship, and we can tick off a few more from the lineup. It is like literally the last couple of weeks we've been looking at it, breaking down the concept, breaking down what is involved with actually delivering it. I think what people need to understand as well is, you know, this is quite an old ship. The concept is quite old. There's a lot of gaps in it, as Corey mentioned. So really, we're just doing our kind of our sanity check on everything, make sure we've got everything in progress. It will be going into full production
very soon.
Shortly, yeah, very soon.
Very soon, TM.
So
Chris deleted the old interior setup level for it this afternoon, ready for the new one. So that's how soon it is.
We are working on it.
Yeah.
It's just it isn't a full team on it yet. We're doing the pre-productions. Like, that's in the pipeline last time. There's been a lot of pre-planning changes to help us further, not have us triple.
So yes
so
and no.
It is in production in that sense.
Yeah, it hasn't started like white boxing.
Open
we haven't started
adding
assets to the editor and stuff, but we are.
It's out of concept.
Doing a full breakdown of what we've got, working out how we're going to tackle it, trying to get the plans in place, and answer the questions. There's some holes in the concept which we could do with a little bit more work on, and they're a bit loose. So it's just kind of breaking down that stuff. But we're not we haven't got a team of artists that work on it.
It's a skin. That's the difference.
I look at it every so often.
The Apollo and the triage is a skin.
And it's just it's us trying to. We want to come to a point where we can come together, have a proper kick-off with the team that are working on it, and go, okay, we know what we're asking you to do, rather than being like, hey, everyone, let's have a look. Click. This is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and to touch on the roadmap bit, something that often gets overlooked on the roadmap is it doesn't particularly show people moving on and off projects or tasks.
Yeah, it doesn't. We would love to see that, though. I know Jake would love to see that too, but they don't have they don't have the fucking bandwidth for it. Let me look it up. The Apollo. I'm looking at the Apollo because someone asked about the difference between the two. Missiles. Oh, it's missiles. Okay.
So you could have someone on the Polaris for 1 week, and they go off it for a week, and then they go back on it for another week. That will show as 3 weeks continuous. Or you could have one person come on, one person go off, then another person comes on, and that will show 2 people for that entire.
And that's the reason why the Shiny Tracker works pretty well, because you can see in the Shiny Tracker part-time versus full-time. So if you're seeing someone who's full-time working on it, I believe, and Shiny Hobo, if they're here, they can correct me on this one, it should show green, where if it's only someone who's part-time, meaning they hop off and on the project, it will be a yellow. So
entire time. In conjunction with that, as part of all of our pipeline work, we've been moving away from our previous scheduling method, which is what the roadmap uses, to being more in Jira. And then because that live updates with the data as we're working through things, and then at some point we go back and put it in there. So there is a bit of lag in how the roadmap updates. So yes, people have been working on it, but it's not hey, we've got 8
No, the Apollo's not a capital ship.
Since 2 weeks ago when the roadmap said.
Yeah. I was going to say, with the Apollo was mentioned as well, that's pretty much what we've done on the Apollo. We had one artist working on it, doing all the pre-production work, making sure it was in a good state, answering all the questions that were unanswered on it, so it's ready to go into production. It is not in production. We haven't got a whole team of artists working on it, but we've done all that preliminary work, and that's why it's not been on the roadmap, because someone's been allocated to it, they've been chipping away at it and getting it ready.
All right, let's see. Next question says, some ship designs have flaws with component swapping. How will this be addressed on legacy ships, and especially where components won't fit past doors or airlocks and things like ladders? I was just going to look at Mark instantly.
Yeah, I can go with it. So a lot of that's what gold standard's for. So when we go through and do gold standards, using the Retaliator as an example, a lot of the components wouldn't.
The Apollo needs drones. It needs modularity, true, which is done, but now it also needs drones, which is also being worked on. But that's a completely different team.
Fit through the doors of the Retaliator as you tractor beam them out and move them. So
I'm really excited for the 600i rework. Any updates? Not yet. We'll probably have more updates at the end of the year, though.
So they would actually fit. Another thing is what components are actually meant to be tractor.
Yeah, it's the bed, like the little pod that goes out and retrieves people. That's a drone.
Taken out with tractor beam, so it's size 3, and capitals obviously aren't meant to be tractor beamed out. You're supposed to go to a dry dock, and someone else will take it out for you because they're too large of components to do. Because theoretically, to get to them, you need to cut parts of the hull out because they're just too large for a person to lift. So the size 0, 1, and 2, you should be able to tractor beam out. Doors that don't fit currently, gold standard will address that, but until we do gold standards on the interiors of a lot of the ships, there may be doors where you can't get them out or places you can't get the components through.
There is a couple like random occasions where like we get like as artists like, oh, can you jump on this ship for like, you know, it's like a half an hour fix to allow you to get your components out your ship, and like we have those, we've got all of the ships like divvied up amongst ourselves, so like even though people leave and people join, there's like the list of all of the ships, and it's like, okay, you're responsible for these. So if there's a component swapping issue on like a particular ship, that like one of mine, I've forgotten which one it was, but I had to like remove around a little bit of the room. Nothing players would really notice, but like it's just enough to make the collision a bit more comfortable to move it out. So you get occasions like that where you'll get like a random like bug come through, and it's like, oh, if you've got a spare 10 minutes to do that, you quickly look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that's a really quick fix that will hopefully make your lives a lot easier. So we do try to, even though we're like, you know, I'm on this ship for X amount of time, I will disappear for like an hour or two if it saves you guys the grief, you know.
Yeah. It depends on the amount of work, right?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah. If it's like a massive overhaul, like obviously that takes.
None of the doors.
But if I can like sneak it in, like I'll try, you know.
Some of it's really quick wins, like when the ship was initially modeled, or when someone created the component base, they just forgot to like cut a hole in the collision for the components. So it's literally impossible to remove it because it's like behind the collision of the exterior. For example,
like, you know, a lot of our ships were made before we had like there was no feature work had been done on it, so we didn't know how we were going to tackle it. So we were just making the best decisions we could at the time. Yeah. And now we know better. Yeah. So that pipeline has evolved, and some of them are super quick. Some of them are like, this door has no animation, it has no mechanics to do the animation, there's just a hole behind it, and they're the ones that take a bit more time. You know, they need a proper art pass, proper design pass.
That's why they call it game development and not game construction.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Vanguard's a good example, right?
Fun time, and then I got Polaris just as you made the video about it. Seems like a lot of viewers too. Well done, your work hard. Thank you, Noodly. Just bought a bunch of CCUs with Invictus. What I did not bargain on was getting a name reservation for MSR. Now that I have one, if I upgrade to a bigger ship like the Caterpillar and get another MSR later, will I still be able to use for name reservation? That's harder to tell. I don't know if that's built into the system. I think it would be safer to not name it if you want to have a name. Or because you can rename it for free. I think you have one rename for free. So you can name it now and then rename it to something you don't want and then change it, and then it should free it up. But yeah, I'd contact support on that one, just so so they know for sure. Because there's a problem like with YouTube. The Astro Historian channel is my actual old TheAstroPub channel, which I just kind of rebranded. And then I opened up this channel, TheAstroPubLive, as a different one, but even though I got rid of the AstroPub logo or the AstroPub name, I couldn't name this the AstroPub because it was still technically used for the original The Astro Historian. It's like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So,
right, had that little railing, which from that point looked nice, having that little railing as you go up the stairs.
Yeah.
I think so, where you just cut the railing off. It's a small little thing, easier to do, but like at the time when we did it, looked good from that standpoint. No one really thought, oh, that railing's going to get in the way of the components, because it wasn't something that people actively
same
thought about.
Same with some of the component hatches that have doors that sort of clamshell open.
Yeah.
They were done so they open it, looks nice and cool, and like, yeah, it'll fit out there.
You can get.
But then when it comes to actually taking it out, they're a centimetre not far open enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of little things that you don't spot.
Yeah. And this is the kind of stuff that happens with any video game. It's just usually they don't have a live environment in the middle of their development.
Yeah.
So,
It's just tech debt, really. Like, you know, a feature comes online, it gets proven out, and then if we have to re-implement that into a bunch of like existing assets, you know, we try our best to anticipate what kind of features will be coming. But
Kuznagi, what they're talking about is if they have the ship and they want to in the future change it for, like, say, a Caterpillar, if they did that upgrade, would they still be able to then buy an MSR and like name it that at the same time? So like if they upgraded to Caterpillar and then bought an MSR straight up, would they be able to reserve the name if they upgraded? And because technically the name would no longer be reserved because it's been updated to the Caterpillar. So that's a good question. Tech debt.
We don't necessarily know how that feature will work. So, you know, part of the challenge of being sort of a team that's affected by a feature is you have to then retroactively support it. You know, so I think that's a big part of what gold standard is. These are all the features we need to support in our vehicles, and it's basically making those vehicles comply with those features.
We had it with salvage as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
It was like exactly the same thing where it was like, oh, there's like loads of quick fixes we can do, or like, okay, we need to dedicate some time to this. And then when salvage first came online, we like had quite a few of us working on it to really try and like get that stuff sorted out. And other ships that were made maybe more recently or whenever, like particular ships, you'd go to fix it and you're like, this is fine.
Yeah.
Great.
It becomes a part of your, you know, your validation. It becomes a part of the like acceptance criteria for the ship is it needs to support this feature. So, you know, we would bring those features into the like review process and basically make sure actually, if we're making a new ship, it should, you know, should have physicalized components, etc. That all of the features that exist for the ship will be, you know, validated as a part of the, you know, review process. So it's more the older content that was kind of, you know, when we first started out, we were kind of discovering what a ship.
It's why each one of these that we make, we get better at it.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
You know, the Rock DS.
It's fine.
Is that it?
Cut you off. And it's like, no, terminate it. Cut them off.
Was that the
internet went down.
Kill it.
The salvage thing was a really good example of how some things you just can't plan for ahead of time. Like salvage is coming online, we know it's going to use the UV2 damage system. We've done all that for the ships already because that's what damage does when you shoot ships. So we're good. And then when it came online, we're like,
oh boy,
we're not good.
Yeah. Well, we didn't realize quite how much of the like the visuals would affect the actual data. So you know, the parts of the ship that were like slightly you know, wouldn't necessarily take as much damage, and they, you know, it'd look fine when you'd blown this thing up. But then it was meaning that you could never like 100% salvage the ship because you couldn't salvage like certain panels, and obviously it just looked a bit weird that, you know, you'd be salvaging along and it would just stop, and it's like, oh well,
Or when there was stuff behind it that would make you see through, like
Or salvage like the left wing, and then like the rear right fin would just disappear, and you're like, what?
What's going on?
No, in chat they're debating whether I did that on purpose when I mentioned the my absolute adoration for the Rock DS. No, I did not do that on purpose. If I had done that on purpose, I would have said how much I really like the Rock DS, and then this would have happened. Let's see, we're almost out of time. Let's see how many more questions we can get in there. The C1 Spirit is marked to have an S3 tractor beam. Will the C1 be able to track smaller vehicles? And what's the difference between an S3 and an S5? This goes to your...
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. It's not supposed to track the vehicles. It's for 32 SU cargo containers, the size 2. So it's getting changed to a size 2, but it's just part of the refactor of the tractor beam sizes.
It's still just as powerful as it was. It's just the name's changed.
It doesn't do any less or more than we said it was going to do originally. It's just that the numbering's changed because we're now doing component grading instead of weapon grading.
Does that mean it can? I don't know if I want to ask this question.
Go on, ask the question.
So if you've got like a PTV that's like super small, can that be picked up by a size 2?
32 SU containers. What was set as the maximum, you'd have to ask a UPU.
Full of what though? Gold?
That's UPU.
Water.
It's their feature.
Oh, Mark, give us the answers.
So
all right, I'll just go ask.
Is the PTV smaller or larger than 32?
Well, physically
smaller.
it's smaller.
Yeah,
it's much.
And it would weigh less?
Definitely. Would have less mass.
I feel like I'm getting someone into trouble here. Do the redacted thing.
Quick call Thorsten.
Yeah.
Bring Thorsten.
Can we get Thorsten on the line?
So that's confirmation that the new tractor...
In theory, it should be able to do the Cyclone then as well, right? And the Steve, because those are all smaller than 32 SCUs. You can probably fit them inside a 32 SCU container.
will be able to lift a gray cat.
Tonk's too big. Tonk's the size of a cutlass. So...
I can hear the team's messages as well.
Yeah, team's messages are going to break the door down.
What? All right, you had to know this one was coming. What does the Fury and Cutter shutters mean for the Carrack?
It's not as cool.
We'll do them at some point.
Oh. No, who's taking it?
Me, I guess. So I want to put them on it. I just need to find time to do it. I was told today.
5 minutes late. You can rename the MSR and the 600i as many times as you want. I've done it. Okay, so you can rename them as many times. So you just rename it something you don't want and then upgrade it.
Learning of it, because I'm one of the newer members of the team, so I didn't actually know that Carrack needed these shutters and stuff. That's for like these guys who know it inside and out to tell me. So I was informed today, because the Carrack's one of the ships I look after. It's like, oh Dan, if you get time, you know you can put the blast shields on the on the Carrack, and I was like, oh, and you're going to say it on live as well. Now I'm going to get bombarded on Twitter until it's done. So
you've confirmed it.
Yeah. So if you find Dan on Twitter, on Spectrum, if you can dig out his
You joke. You joke. God damn it, I can't find him. I do follow him on Twitter. He doesn't post much on Twitter.
email address, feel free.
No, don't.
I will try for you guys, but yeah, it's just a case of time and like.
Dan doesn't dictate his own priorities.
Yeah,
so
When we talk about like, you know, when you jump on for like,
me,
it kind of comes back to like the salvage stuff or like the tractor beaming of components. Like if I look at it and I go, oh, that's a quick fix, it'll be a quick thing. But if I look at it and I'm like, that is not a quick thing, I need to ask for some time because it will affect my other work, then it becomes
we did say that you could have a look at it and see how much work it is, and if it, if the file's already been set up, all the animation data is there, it's all ready to go, and it's just a case of we just need to export it and do it, then cool. But if it's going to take you away from the current vehicle you're on for a week or two, then
when the Carrack was developed, we did prove
yeah. It's nice to fix bugs as a treat.
It's just there's more to it.
It's like
needs doing. We made sure it would work, but that's
okay. All right. I thought you were going to say, it would only take 5 minutes.
No. What I'm saying is we just proved out the spacing, the animation mechanism and stuff. Like, it's going to need UV2s, it's going to be LODs, it's going to need more detail and popping, all that stuff.
It's not going to take 5 minutes then?
No.
I mean, he did manage to build the entire Fury all by himself.
On a single weekend. In memory of Alex.
F's in the chat.
Let's see. A long time ago in the shipyard articles, you mentioned different component types. We talked about sizes, industrial, military, etc., and the ability to tune them. Is this still the plan? And if so, can you give us any hope for the future of tuning? Love Twingo? Electric-car? Twingo?
We'll talk about the Twingo for the rest of the time. It's sort of more of a EU-PU thing now. Definitely plans to have those different types, grades, sort of like performance windows for different items. And they have a pretty comprehensive engineer slash tuner slash repairer gameplay proposal that they're working on as part of some of the other features they're doing. So it's sort of tuning items is part of that role. So it's definitely planned.
All right. With that.
Rip Alex.
Let's see. Anything else? Normally, we're just about out of time. Normally, we do kind of a round robin.
Characters far from gold standard, so why bother from the shutters, module scanning, mapping, hover drones, especially? Holy shit, there's how much is missing there. I mean, all of those are not all of those are not gold standard. I think it's fine. It just needs to get new functionality, not necessarily gold standard pass.
Robin on ships that are in production right now, because like you said, sometimes the public roadmap falls a little bit out of sync and stuff like this. Can you just give us an update on ships that are what you would consider in active production as opposed to like pre-production? We know the Polaris is what we consider pre-production. Yeah. Somebody is on there scoping out the work necessary before it moves into production. But what's in active production right now?
We're in the danger zone here now.
Yep. I'm going to slowly do it and look at John as I see. So there's Redacted that's on Josh.
Yeah.
There's Adam's. Will I talk about that one?
I'm trying to think what Adam's doing.
Who knows?
Spirit.
Yeah.
Yep. We've got
too late.
Too late now. I was pretty sure that one was safe. So we've got the Spirit in. What else do we have?
SLV just finished art and design.
Yeah. Obviously.
Hull C.
Yep. Hull
just
C
at the end. in its final teething.
We've got some
stages.
more redacteds that are on Chris.
Hold on, I'm going to see if I can't prop this properly so you don't all see his... I know. There we go. To prove my point. This is ArtStation, though. Oh, he's done a bunch of stuff for like environmental teams. Sorry, I had to do it.
What else is it? What the US working on?
X1?
Took me long to find his name.
X1's about to start on the US.
Technically, that's had a little bit of work on it already, but...
Yeah, the Storm is storming through production.
Oh, he did it.
No, it was in the segment. It was in the episode yesterday. Oh, you said the storm is storming through. Yeah, no, we actually... We missed a narrative bit. It's, again, some of the things that missed through. It's like, in case you guys didn't catch it from the episode, you know, the Tumble Storm is in a concept promotion right now as part of Invictus, but it is already in production with the
S3 bombs might have been
well into production.
It's looking good. That stuff you saw at the end, that was not concept art. That was the actual white box and well into gray box stuff. It's looking great.
They're doing the Santok guy as well.
We'll be updating for the We'll be showing you an update on the Santok Yai for Alien Week in just a few weeks.
Montreal working on some variants of an existing ship. I'm just trying to mentally go around the floor.
Pretty sure that's all of them.
Retaliator stuff we're doing, we talked about before.
G12?
G12 will be going, so in the next year, Backlog ships that will be going into production. Caveat, things can always change. Polaris.
So this is not true.
Apollo, G12,
G12,
Raylan, X1s.
Fucking really? I think that's planned on the order too. I hope it's not the order because I'm just like, where the fuck is the X1 gonna be? What the fuck? For the Raylan? Or after the Raylan?
I'm noticing something conspicuously absent. The
BMM.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ban new.
So we'll talk about the Merchantman briefly because we discussed like how we want to do the backlog of capital ships.
Thorn still plays.
So we want to start with RSI because during the...
For those of you who don't know, Hitman Stallion and Thorn are old Arena Commander vets. They're around. They can tell you that I've been streaming and playing the game for a very long time. So apparently it's going to come out after the Raylan. I know. I'm sure that's not the idea though. The Polaris, yeah, the first one he said was Polaris because the Polaris is in active development right now. Like it's not in production, but it's like it's in that weird in between where it's like still being worked out its interior space, but it's still being like they said they were working on it today, like the day of filming. So
Polaris first helps reduce the amount of work needed for the Perseus and the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. So those three will likely be like a chain of dependencies from each other.
Kind of shared assets.
Yeah, there's a lot of shared assets between them. Obviously the exteriors are like quite different, but you do an RSI hall kit or corridor kit, floor kit, doors, beds. Chairs. Yeah, it all gets reused across them, maybe with some slight material differences. So there are a few things that are problematic with the BMM. Firstly, everything is unique.
Everything.
So it's not like we do one corridor kit.
It can't be modular.
Yeah, it can't be modular. It has to be unique.
Yeah.
Nothing on the ship can be modular. Every corridor, every room.
Everything's unique. So the amount of time investment.
I mean, there's some chairs, but even then some of the chairs we couldn't reuse because of the shaping of the rooms.
So like molded something.
Yeah.
Hoopy Fruit, that's... So it looks like they're currently planning on 5 ships the next year. If they assume that they'll be able to meet the goal of releasing 5 of those ships, how long will it take them to go through the backlog of those remaining ships? There's the problem. They have entirely new teams which are coming online in Montreal. So they've even said that they want to have the point where they're releasing 1 to 2 capital ships a year. Not next year, but or not this year, but maybe next year, maybe the year after that, in terms of their new flow. Plus a brand new team, and they're expanding their team in UK. So it's impossible to tell that, because that number is going to go up. It's just a matter of time and resources. So.
Yeah.
Right. There's
So, like,
lots of.
He also said just for the backlog. That's true, but there's not really any new capital ships that they seem to be developing. They're not developing capital ships until they can get through the backlog they have, because there's not a lot of stuff there. So I expect their backlog won't remain static. They haven't really released new ships that are going into the backlog. I think the most recent one would be the Galaxy, but I'm assuming that's going to be coming out pretty quickly as well. Because they just said they need to do an entire kit for the capital ships, and so once they do the Polaris, that'll be the interior capital ship kit for the Perseus and for the Galaxy. So
everything. It was.
So yeah, we had a lot of people on there. We had some unfortunate people leaving, which they've been.
So like it's hard. It's almost impossible to tell. Yeah, they'll be doing new ships, but they'll also be working on the backlog, and I don't think they'll really have any new backlog outside of the Galaxy. The last one before that was the Perseus, I think. I was just curious how long the backlog was. Oh, Fastcard, are you here? Fastcard actually has a full list. Thank you, Fastcart. There's the full list. Pull it up. So 92% of the, so it's the Idris M, the Merchantman, the Whole Sea, the Orion, the Idris, the Javelin, the Genesis, the Endeavor, the Crucible. And I think the Whole Sea is also technically all of the other holes. Oh, no, the whole E, I guess, was in Whole B and Whole D. I guess they released them a little bit later. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it's 44. The Storm is already in production. The Spirit is 3 and 1. The Galaxy, the Legionnaire. The Legionnaire is probably another one because it's requiring stuff. The Liberator, the Odyssey. So of those 30 plus, a lot of those are like let's without variants. It's one because they do the variants at the same time now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So it's 30-ish with that. The Whole Sea is going to be released at the end of this year, and then the other variants will come out shortly afterwards. Then these two are being worked on. These 3 are apparently being worked on. This is currently in production. The Raylan's currently in production. The UTV, which hasn't been sold, but it's been talked about. Storm's currently in production. The Spirit's currently in production. So I'd say about 20% of this is currently in production to release sometime this year. So.
Been here quite a while, so we'd lost a lot of sort of that team knowledge and part of rebuilding the team.
So gotcha. So even if they double the output with new hires, changes to teams and pipeline optimization will take them 3 years to complete the backlog. That sounds about right. It's important to remember that a lot of the capital ships aren't being done because there's no gameplay for them. They need resource gameplay. They also need the server meshing to be in the game, and both of those aren't going to be until at the earliest the end of this year, which I don't think is going to happen. I think it's probably more likely the earliest we'll see it is next March, but you know. The thing that pisses me off is the X1 could have been done easier. And like the Pioneer requires base building. The Nautilus requires mines and drones. The Galaxy requires modularity. The Storm requires hacking. The Crucible requires repair. The Endeavor requires the whole fucking game to be done. So, and the Merchantman requires selling from, same with the Kraken. Both require selling from ships, sales, this sort of thing. And the Expanse requires refining as a gameplay option. So, of all of those, I would probably say something like 20% of those ships as well are just straight up waiting for gameplay to be finished. So, yeah, so the base requires modularity as well. Yeah, it's you also got to remember that the whole D and E will probably be an X1 situation or like a Taurus situation where they're just going to abandon them for like years because anybody with a whole D or E is going to get a whole C. And same with the B, because anyone with the B is going to get an A because it's just not really viable and the whole C is plenty. The differences between the holes are just the cargo capacity. That's it. There's not like that much of a gameplay difference between them. And then the Genesis requires like cargo transports and that kind of stuff like that. So B's on the list too, but the B is more closer to the A than it is the C. So. Oh, we're definitely going to see the Squadron 42 is going to come out before.
Obviously, again, like we said, you don't get new staff members go, hey.
And there's absolutely no reason for the D&E until more systems are implemented.
Welcome to the Banner Merchantman. Here's a completely bespoke thing that does not follow any of our existing art guidelines.
Yep.
And all the time we would have put into that would be just for that ship.
I'm just saying the backlog is not actually that much. Yeah, like the SRV has been in active development. It's basically done. It's just waiting for the tractor beam stuff. We know that the spirits are basically done. They'll be done before the end of the year, all three of them. Though the E is a good question as if that's going to be coming out or not, because its gameplay doesn't exist, sort of. The Storm is basically done. Let's see what else is here. The C is actually done. The whole C is done. It's waiting for more stuff. So of this list, the C is done, the SRV is done, all of the spirits are done, and the SRV is done. I say SRV. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there one other one? 4 are finished. Well, actually 5 are finished. 6 are finished. So of those, 6 are done, or will be done shortly. So, yeah, 320 is set up to be thick.
We get no reuse from it. So yes, we will do it again, but personally, I think the time is better spent on other capital ships to get people up to speed, and then we can start putting people back on it.
Yeah.
It's like 99 problems, but 42 of them are duplicates, 20 of them are minor gripes, and 35 of them are things that I made up, and the rest are just actual issues. Yeah. So the game will break in 6 months when 320 drops? Yes. Yes, it will.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of love within the team for the Merchantman. I think it's...
Except for the picture Mark took of it.
Yeah, apart from Mark's
the FOV on that record.
I'm never going to hear the end of that, am I? No. Okay.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement there for it. It's just making sure that, again, like we said, that the team's
and bring it for
we can actually deliver it to the standards that we expect.
Can you imagine training new people on developing a brand new art style for a ship? Because I generally think Merchantman's going to be one of the hardest ships we ever do, just because of all the additional factors that involve with it, the scale of it, the fact that nothing is...
I didn't mean to say Orion. It was the whole C. I didn't say the Orion was done, unless you're talking to somebody else. The ships that are done are the whole C, the SRV, the Spirits, the Storm. Those are all finished. When I say finished, I mean finished. And the Sentok Yai is also in that sort of ballpark. The Spirit is like in gray box right now, or between gray box and Laud 0, which is the step before final art. The SRV had its final pass a month ago, so it's done. It's just waiting for its mechanics to come online. And the whole C they've been slow walking the whole C for a year. It's been done for 2 years. And then they're just like, but we're going to bring it up to our new standard. And then they slow walk the shit out of it. And it's been finished or it's been on the roadmap or on the progress or monthly reports. They've been saying it's been done for since February. So I'm sure there's still more things to do on them, but they're like minor adjustments. So yeah, done versus finished. Yeah. So like those, I could see a 320 where we get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We get 7 ships released at once, plus new ships. 320 is set up to possibly be 320 and the IAE patch, which will probably be a 320 branch variant, is set up to be like 10 ships released at the end of the year. Oh, Spirit's almost certainly going to become in 320. It's in Lot Zero, so it's still got 6 months to go between now because 320 is coming in October. So yeah, almost. I don't think it's the biggest patch ever. I think it's the biggest drop of ships ever if they manage to hit all of those ships. We know the whole sea is planned on it at least. So
it's really reused. It's all unique molded, all the rooms, all the floors. It's that.
It's a different
cool
like,
art
style of modeling as well, right?
Yeah.
In terms of our like actual discipline of like how we make ships.
More organics.
Yeah, it's like more like traditional vehicle modeling, like than it would be like a hard surface weapon.
Yeah, it's hard surface meets organic and this weird.
It's
automotive.
I say we'd worked on that process and we had a good process in place.
I'm gonna let him go through it, but I'm going to check something
out. They chose to go off and chase new adventures, and we wish them the best of luck, and it was a big loss to the team, but that initial kind of pre-production was done and it's there. It's just we just need to get to the point where we can still deliver our current like lineup of ships we want to deliver, and we want to be able to do it justice, and it just takes a bit of time.
And keep on top of bug backlog.
Keep on top of backlog.
Feature support, because we're constantly supporting other feature teams. Like you've got the track. There was a lot of work with the tractor beam. There's a lot of work with the salvage, and there's other features coming online that we have to support, and all of them are time. Lots of time investment from our side to actually implement them in the ships and stuff like the resources. Yeah.
This is where it's at right now. And they haven't split it up into all of the different ships. And if you look at the monthly reports, all of them have reached between Gray Box and Lot Zero. Which Lot Zero is a step before final art, and so all of them are in the process of being done as of like April. So when we get the May monthly report next week, that'd be a good indication. If all of them are still marching through Gray Box and are in Lot Zero or better, then they have from 5 months to do that. And that's for a ship that size. That's not that long. Like that's a lot of time for them to do that. We're looking for links. You're looking for this? I can just like it's just the progress tracker. What are you asking for, Hitman Stallion? You can post links. You just post links. You're good. You can post links. No, I wouldn't see a PTU until September, October. Because 320 is not coming out until the end of October.
We didn't get to it. One of the things we discussed about that I want to talk is when I talked about how we balance those things. It's like this. We'll do another one of these when it comes time for IE probably in November. But there's definitely place for a in-depth discussion of how we balance that workload. The balance between new ships and ships that are already on backlog. Balance between giant capital ships or ships that are an entirely unique art style versus those same people at the same time could crank out 4 other ships in the same period of time. How do you balance that? And then of course all the gameplay balance implications at 197 different vehicles now, and adding more and more, balancing, their capabilities and stuff. So there's a video like this that can just be all about balance, and I think we'll probably pursue that down the line, because it's a conversation I really like to have, and I think the community would benefit from it.
Balancing.
But that does it for today, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me to hang out on at the end of a Friday. I'm going to need your help putting everything back. As you can see, there's a big giant change to the set, so I'm going to need you here for the next 2 or 3 hours just to move furniture and put everything back. You good?
Sure.
Okay. For Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared. That was what button? That was John, and that's Corey, and that's Chris, and that's Ben, and that's Mark, and that's Dan. Enjoy the rest of Invictus. I think there's more promotions to the last weekend and stuff like that. If I had thought about it, I would have looked it up and told you about it, but I'm not good at my job. And I'll see you next week. Tune in for Inside Star Citizen next week. We are talking about the resurrection like a phoenix of Arena Commander next week, and there's a lot of really cool stuff coming. Woo! So stay tuned for that. And I think we should just end it there.
We haven't done Corey's introduction of role.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Corey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi.
Ben, come back. Why are you not helping?
All right. I'm going to be real with y'all. I'm about to say something that's highly incorrect. That's going to get a lot of people laughing at me, and I don't care. Which is, I said this at the very beginning of the year, and I'm sticking to it. Watch the Arena Commander team. They're doing something. Because it feels like they've been given carte blanche. Like, they're just like, here you go. Enjoy. Here's the tools. Do something. So the Arena Commander team is pretty small, but it's a small group of dedicated folks, many of who have been working on the Arena Commander experience for over a year now. And they're hiding something. They're doing something big that they don't want to talk about. And Sean Tracy's involved with it. Like, oh, what could that be? Theaters of where? They're canceling Squadron 42. Yes, exactly. That's the answer. They probably renamed it because they said that was a temporary name. That was a work in progress name, Theaters of War. So Theaters of War. So if it's not Theaters of War, it's something else. There's a new game mode that they want to implement. They've mentioned it before, that they want to do a new game mode. They said it in the monthly reports too. So they're doing something, but they need to get a bunch of the front end stuff done. So they haven't gotten a bunch of the front end stuff done. That's going to have to come out in 3.8.19, possibly 3.20. But they could actually get a bunch of front stuff done and then 3.20, because I know people are like, oh, well, 3.20 is going to come out sooner. I don't think it's going to come out until after Squadron. After Squadron 42. We're not going to get 3.20 for another 3 years. After CitizenCon. Front end and under the hood stuff, yeah. For those of you who don't know what Theaters of War is, let me show off Theaters of War.
watch each other's back and come home in one piece.
Oh, this is 2 years old by now. Three years, actually. God, working grenades.
All right, new plan. I think they're controlling it from that radar tower. I need all agents to focus on that. All teams. Redirecting you to take out that mining laser. Use ships or take it on foot. Whatever it takes. It's gotta go.
He missed. I didn't even remember that. He missed with that. All right. So, for those of you who are brand new, that's what Theaters of War is. My theory, and this is just a theory, I'm not saying the rest of it because, you know, I get copyright strike because apparently you get copyright strike if you say the game theory stuff, is that Theaters of War is no more. Not because it's gone, but because it's been folded into an experience that is now a new thing. I think what we're going to have is a unified experience where Arena Commander, Star Marine, and Theaters of War are all the same, under the same umbrella, but each of those is their own kind of game mode. And I know a lot of people are like, well, it has no purpose. I think it still has a purpose as Death of the Spaceman starts to come online more, as consequences, as the universe expands with more systems and Death is going to start hurting a lot more. You want to have a system like this to practice, prepare, and train, as well as a fun little event. And as someone pointed out, you could easily package this with Squadron 42, and that's the thing. If you look at the Squadron 42 listing, it's still up, even though it's off the website. You can actually still see it on the website. You just can't access the sale of it. It comes packaged with Arena Commander and Star Marine. So every copy of Squadron 42 comes with Arena Commander and Star Marine. And a lot of people have even said Siege of Orison. I think CIG's even said that Siege of Orison started off from the development of Theaters of War. That's where it came from originally. A lot of stuff that is in the game now came from Theaters of War's work, including the fact that the shoulder-mounted railgun, the Scourge, is so powerful. They realized because it needed to be that powerful in order to deal with ships. So. Star Marine's like a poopy manager. You don't care about it because they don't, basically. Now, they have a dedicated team with Arena Commander who's finally on it, so they're still finally fixing Star Marine and Arena Commander and so on and so forth. But that takes time. They don't have a huge team, so. We could have events like Siege of Orison dedicated to Star Marine and Theaters of War, yeah, at some point. Because the Arena Commander team is very small. It's not a main focus of the game. I think it's only got like 6 or 7 people on it. It's just not a very big focus because the PU and Squadron 42 are the big focuses. Is this wild ass guessing, or do you have any inside info? This is all wild ass guesses to a degree. It's an educated guess in the sense that there is a lot of information. There is a Squadron 42 does come packaged with Star Marine and Arena Commander. That's not a wild ass guess. That's listed on the website. So anyone who purchased Squadron 42 before now has to have access at the very least, because you can't buy them anymore. And then there is a new game mode that they're introducing. It's in the monthly report. I'll pull it up for you. Design also continued to polish the new Arena Commander front end, adding filters, detail to the game mode tiles, and video backgrounds to the mode buttons. Finally, designs were completed for an unannounced feature. What unannounced feature, CIG? And this April 2023. So the last monthly report we got. Not racing isn't a new feature. The racing's been in the feature forever. The racing has been in there for a long time. It's not an unannounced feature. Planet Farming and Arena Commander. That's how CIG talks about their stuff. True, it could be new colors for a ship, but not for the Arena Commander team. That was specifically for the Arena Commander team. That would make no sense. But in theory, it could be anything. It could be soda pop. We don't know. But given the educated guess of CIG's been working on stuff, they've mentioned before the Arena Commander team has been working on something. There's something they want to do that they want to talk about later this year. They specifically said that on an ISC. All of that's pointing towards there's something that's going on, and there's really nothing else in that realm other than Theaters of War. That's the whole point. Historical battles will eventually make it in Theaters of War. I mean, heck, even I could see a version of Siege of Orison make it into Theaters of War as well. It's a great place for putting events when the events aren't running. This is important to remember that Arena Commander is completely separate from anything else. It might even be a boat. Yeah. All right, y'all. I think that's going to wrap it up for me today. Let me get some more stuff done. Yeah, and this Thursday has an ISC about a 320 Arena Commander updates. That's why when he mentioned that at the end of the video, I was like, there's been a bunch of other things been mentioned. So we'll have to see. Anyways, thank you all for hanging out. Love your faces. I will see you on Thursday for another, that's right, 2 office hours. That one's going to be our normal time around 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be like 2 a.m. for people in Europe. It's not going to be something I'm going to do regularly, but I will do them probably one more time in July, maybe in August as well. We'll see. But yeah, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for all the love and support. Thank you for the hosts from Mike and from all these wonderful folks. I will be back again on Thursday, as I said, on June 1st, I believe. So thanks again. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.